Okay, we got this now. Okay, wonderful. Took a little longer, but welcome everybody to Hippy Dippy Roundtable. We're gonna go straight into it since it took so long for setup. I'm just gonna have everybody introduce themselves. We're gonna start in the left-hand corner with Brant.
Yeah, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Brant from Brant for Liberty. I am a crowdsourced media React Andy. I react to a lot of things that are going on internationally as well, domestically. I'm ready for a spirit-filled debate. I see a few new faces that I have not met. Nice to meet everyone here. And like I said, I'm looking forward to a really good conversation.
Wonderful. Now we're going to throw it to a new guest, Mr. Green Zurich.
Yeah, my name's Nick. You can call me Nick. You can also call me Greenzeg if you want. I've streamed for about a year. Mostly just played D&D with a guy called Koibu. I'm in a campaign with Destiny at the moment. This is kind of my first foray into the online debate sphere. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm looking forward to
it. Good luck. Throwing it over to James.
Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I'm from the internet. I host a YouTube series called Left of Left, and I broadcast here on Twitch most afternoons and evenings.
Next, we're going to throw it over to Lonerbox.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Lonerbox, most toxic streamer on Twitch. Also make YouTube videos.
And he's British. Next, we're going to throw it over to Preacher.
How you doing? Preacher570 here on Twitch. I do Monday through Friday. I do a show, In My Humble Opinion, and I'm on TikTok now at Preacher570. And yeah, I'm looking forward to a good debate. Some of you guys I know, some of you guys I don't, so it'll be interesting. I do.
You have a TikTok. What do you post on TikTok?
Actually, I try to keep my politics off of there and just have fun.
Got you. Okay. I'm going to throw it now over to Stardust.
Muted.
Very great opinion, Stardust.
Informative.
Okay, Kevin Gasly.
The overtones in her voice are amazing.
Fuck.
Wait, there we go.
Sorry, I thought I wasn't muted. I'm so sorry. Okay, first off, fuck everybody here. Okay, I'm Stardust. I stream on Twitch. I'm the fastest rising villain in Twitch politics, and everybody can go get fucked. Okay, I'm here 7 days a week.
Wonderful. Now we're going to throw it over now. She also has called me a wet towel, so she's a scoundrel.
I have called you a wet towel. I'm so sorry about that. You're a dry towel. I'm so sorry.
You're very mean. I'm going to throw it over to Kevin Castley.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. Great to be here. So I'm Kevin Castley. I run the channel Superpower Broadcasting. I stream every day, every week to Twitch. And I, as those who follow me will know, I just got my YouTube channel back after 89-day copyright battle against fascists who spammed my channel with frivolous copyright. YouTube sided with me. So we're back, baby. So you can subscribe to me on YouTube as well. Hawk Gang, Liberal Hawk, Feminism, Liberal World Order, all that good stuff. Great to be here. Thank you.
You forgot Gangnam Style.
Gangnam Style, all that stuff. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And congratulations on getting your channel back.
Thanks, Dylan, and I appreciate you reaching out to me and everything when that happened, because that was some nuts drama that happened in my neck of the politosphere. So
no worries, man. And love the beard. Now we're throwing it over to a new guest, never been on before, Doghouse Show.
What was that, Dylan?
I don't remember. I don't remember the little people.
All right, so here's the thing. First of all, I'm the Doghouse Show. I stream once every 6 months. I was the person who made IRI. I am the person who made Frames. And Dylan, I was gonna exclude you from that. Damn, man, how you gonna do that to me? Look, I stream once every 6 months. I don't know what to really say. I'm the Doghouse Show. Rough. Let's get to this shit, bro. Let's do it.
You're one of two dog-centered channels now. Doghouse, Wolfpack, very correlated. Okay.
No, not together. We separate.
We're separate. Conservatives have always been advocates of separate but equal. Now we're going to go into the first topic. But first let me get into the rules. So the first rule is nothing TOS. We would like to all keep our jobs, and I would like to keep mine. So nothing against terms of service. The second rule is that we will treat people with respect when it comes to immutable characteristics. That means you don't go after people's race. That means you don't go after people for being a woman or a man, and all of those types of things. You also, I don't care what you do on your own channels, but you're going to gender people how they would want to be gendered here. That's a rule that I have in place. If you don't like it, you can always go to a different panel show. I hear Infrared is hiring. So, is anybody confused about any of those rules? No, wonderful. One last thing. If you have a difficulty moving into the panel discussion, because, there's 8 people trying to talk, raise your hand. I am in LA at the moment, so I do not have my handy, nifty notebook, but I'll try to make a mental note of it. I'll do my best. Or I'll just bring up a notepad in one of my many screens that Wicked Supreme has provided for me today. Any confusion? Wonderful. So we're going to go into the first topic. It is kind of a sleeper a little bit. Roe versus Wade. So Roe versus Wade has gone into the national conversation again as the Supreme Court is hearing a testimony on the future of Roe versus Wade as the nation then once again debates Roe versus Wade. Of course, the question of is abortion moral or immoral, or what the legal status of abortion should be in this country, has gone on for decades as pro-lifers and pro-choicers have battled it out, not only legally and in the court system and judicially on the state and national level, but also on the streets with protest. And so my question is, what is your view on Roe versus Wade and the current discussion going around Roe versus Wade? I'm leaving it purposely vague so you can start wherever you want with the conversation. I'm going to start with Brant for Liberty in the top left-hand corner.
I know. Pass me the ball first here. Okay, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. That way we can have a lot of time to volley back and forth. Even though I personally, in my own household, am pro-life, I would never interfere with what another state voted in as a policy. I do not believe in a federal stance on this. I think it should be left up to the states. And we can argue the gray area of when conception ends and personhood begins. But as far as that, I like to stick to me and mine and not try to rule another state for which I'm not even paying taxes in or involved in their communities. I trust their constituents, and that's basically my 2 cents on it.
Wonderful. Now we're going to throw it over to, it was Greenzerg. What was it that I could call you by?
Nick.
Nick. Okay, throw it over to Nick.
Well, thank you. All right, also trying to keep it short and sweet. I'm trying to approach, I feel there's a lot of great arguments for why abortion should be legal, but I'm going to go for one that maybe appeals to some people on the right. So I think the previous decision in Roe versus Wade established a certain amount of liberties for women, i.e. the right to bodily autonomy or privacy as it's described in the legislation. That's something that's been granted to 50% of the population. If you want to roll that back, fetus maybe outweighs the woman's right to bodily autonomy. If you want to move that line earlier, you got to have a very compelling reason to do so. And I've yet to hear a great argument from anyone on the right as to why that should be moved back, why those liberties should be taken away. And most of the arguments that I hear are appeals to feelings and or religion.
Okay, we're going to now throw it over to James.
Not a big fan of any individual being forced to be a breeding sow because the state says they're not allowed to have a medical procedure of their choice. The state is pretty much trash. The Supreme Court is pretty much trash. And I'm going to close with people shouldn't be breeding sows just because you like an invisible dude floating in the sky who's surrounded by dead flying babies playing harps. Thank you.
We're now going to throw it over to Preacher.
Yeah, I agree with Brant. I do not believe the federal government has should be delving into each state and instead leave this up to a state's option. I do believe that Roe versus Wade is the single most damaging decision when it comes to women's mental health and life in general. I think considering a woman a breeding sow when it was her decision to lay down and have sexual relations is completely out of line. But I mean, we can call women sows if we want to. I choose not to. That's just my personal choice, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Next, I'm going to throw it over to Lonerbox.
Yeah, first of all, Americans, but I guess like this kind of conversation can go in all kinds of directions, like whether it's going to become a weird abstract conversation about the philosophy of where life begins and et cetera, or we can talk about, I think maybe the personal liberty argument that Brant gave was maybe a bit of a cop-out, like the federal government can't hit people's bodily autonomy, but the state can. I feel like that's a really arbitrary distinction that isn't really I don't know why you would make that. I can maybe just throw out like my very simple take on it is that there is no such thing as a pro-life position. There's a pro-birth position. And even if all the people who call themselves pro-life actually did support things like support for childcare and for young mothers and family planning and all that, then even if that were the case, then you still have the issue where you have a child who's born to a family that didn't want them. That's not pro-life, that's pro-birth.
Okay. Next is going to be the Doghouse Show.
All right. So typically I try to avoid these conversations because they become extremely toxic. However, I am on the panel and I will give my initial opinion. Honestly, I'll see where it goes. I'm gonna hold my cards close to me. I just think that honestly, this conversation typically is gonna go one of two ways. We're either gonna see people talking about the morality of things, whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing. We're then gonna see something about where does it life start. We're gonna hear conversations about all sorts of things. We'll see where it goes. I have a feeling we're gonna deviate away from the actual conversation of Roe v. Wade. I'm pretty certain we all know how this is gonna go. This conversation is as old as Roe v. Wade itself, even older than that, 1856 to be precise. But anyways, we'll see how this goes, but I have low expectations. So,
Okay. Kevin Glassley.
Thanks, Don. So basically, with this situation here, I think it's proof positive that elections matter. Had Hillary Clinton won in 2016, this wouldn't really be the debate topic right now. This is happening because Donald Trump was able to appoint a bunch of conservative justices, and you know what? That's his right. You know, he won the election. That's what happens, and elections matter. So the lesson there is, you know, it's going to take a long time to overturn and everything, but if you're in the United States, I'd hope that you would support reproductive rights, right? So because the Supreme Court in the U.S. is not actually impartial or just reading the Constitution, it ultimately is political one way or the other. And in this case, 6-3, not very good odds. But I will say, if men could get pregnant, this wouldn't even be a debate as well. It just simply wouldn't be a debate. Abortion would just be a right at that point. And it's not about scripture. It's not about morals. It's about controlling women. So I hope that Roe versus Wade would be upheld. I don't think it will be, though, given the Constitution of the Supreme Court currently. Thank you.
Okay. And Stardust. Again.
Sorry. Okay. Resident Sal here. So if we want to approach this from like a family perspective, there have been studies done on what the results are when women are turned away from an abortion. One of those things is that when women are turned away from an abortion, they are more likely to experience economic hardship and years later are still having trouble paying for basic living expenses. Also, on top of that, women who aren't allowed to get an abortion are more likely to stay with a violent partner and thus exposing their existing offspring as well as their unborn offspring to violence in the home. They're less likely to have maternal bonding with their child that they have been denied to get an abortion. I'm sure there are a whole other array of things that I could pull up. I think that honestly being pro-choice is going to be better off in the long run if you are somebody who is pro-family. I don't see how you can see the greater, broader societal effects of these issues and not take a pro-choice stance on this.
Okay. Obviously.
Also, sorry.
No, continue.
I would ask. I always want to ask especially when it's a lot of males around. If you had the ability to get pregnant, would you like to experience that? I guess that experience of growing something inside you and giving birth to it, I guess.
You mean if it was only a man that could get pregnant instead of a woman, or if either could?
If either could get pregnant, if you could share that responsibility with your partner, would you want to carry that?
Purely from a selfish point of view, I don't think I would. I mean, I think maybe if you were in a loving, committed relationship and you really wanted a child, perhaps then you would agree to share the burden. But I agree with you. It's easy for men to sit here and critique the rights of women to have an abortion when they don't have to go through it themselves.
Okay.
I think there's a really easy parallel you can draw to that. There was
Loner. Okay. I'm starting my panels in different ways. So somebody who wants to start us off, could they raise their hand? That's how we're going to start off every topic so it isn't a mess. Okay, well, start us. Guess you could start us off then.
Yeah. So I guess this is more like a thought experiment that I have, right? When I ask, like, would you, if the technology were available to you, would you want to carry a child for 9 months? Would you elect to do that for your partner? Let's say if it were a high-risk pregnancy for her.
I would do it in a heartbeat. Because I love my wife. Yeah, unconditionally, I would do it without even questioning it.
Yeah.
I think not only would I do it, but I would also do it for what the reason Brandt's given, but also to be able to experience that. I know it's painful. I obviously don't know the pain, although I've been told a man having a cold is probably equal to the same as a woman in labor. But anyway, I know it's painful, but to experience that, bringing the life into the world, I would do it for that purpose too. And maybe that's a little bit selfish, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm biased.
No,
on that,
I think
for
that's
sure.
very interesting. I think it's an interesting question to put out there because we talk about what it's like to have to make that type of decision, right? But I think that it's interesting to think about what if you were the one who's growing that, right? And you found out, let's say, very late term in your pregnancy that this was going to be an unviable pregnancy, right? I've heard stories of women who have to get the very late term abortions, and the ones that I've heard have been because of medical reasons, and it's heartbreaking for them because they did want that child, but they had to get abortion.
Certainly. So first off, from my understanding of how I've listened to Roe v Wade, Casey, and some other things like that, this was discussed. In fact, in Roe v Wade, they discussed cases of rape as well. And in those discussions, they said, even though with Roe v Wade, it came from a Texas statute, and they tried talking about if we upheld your statute, what about cases of rape? And they admitted, they said, look, if you upheld it, obviously we would it wouldn't exclude rape. However, there are cases where if there is a rape, that usually gets handled immediately, and that handling is typically through the way of an abortion. I don't think I've seen very many abortion laws that are, and in fact, Roe v. Wade upholds this, right? Which is the fact of the 3 trimesters, right? And they say at the 3rd trimester, really, the state's interest is highest. I think it's highest. Where it should be a concern between the doctor and the mother of this decision because it is such late term. This is why we have the viability at 24 weeks. The Mississippi law, that is what is stirring up all this conversation, is based on the 15 weeks. So what they're talking about in the Supreme Court case that's going on right now is lowering the viability limit from 24 weeks to 15 weeks. So there's a lot of discussion there. And yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so there's discussion, and during the court proceedings, they asked I think it's like Center for Reproductive Rights and the U.S. Solicitor General, they asked them, I think it was Justice Thomas asked, hey, what's the difference between lowering it from 24 to 15, or what's the difference between increasing it from 24 to 27? And they gave some answers such as undue burden, essentially. But I would say this, that what would end up happening in essence if Roe v. Wade were to be overturned, it would go pre-Roe v. Wade, essentially. I don't see that happening per se. We'll see. But what it would do is it would leave it up to the states. I don't think, in my personal opinion, that one, women would be held to jail. First and foremost, I don't believe that to be the case. I think it'd be doctors that would be held most liable in this situation, civilly and criminally. The third is I think that you would see exceptions like these where in cases of rape, in cases of third trimester, these options would still be there. And this was discussed, like I said, all the way back in Roe v. Wade. So it's just something to keep in mind. I mean, I don't think you would see anybody who's opposed to like, hey, a third trimester, you know, if it's important and it's medically, these things have to be weighed. Who gets the priority?
yeah.
And I think in this case, it's the mother.
Well, I see what you're saying, but the only reason I bring up the third trimester is because that seems to be something that a lot of people bring up, but they don't seem to have a full understanding of why these abortions happen so late, right? It's not that the person who's getting the abortion late term and the third trimester didn't want that child. They did, but that it's just not medically viable. So
if we take out the whole rape and incest, and I'm not invalidating that in any way, shape, or form, but if we take out the rape and incest and the medical issues, which are the lowest percentages of reasons given for abortion, and we go with the top percentage, which is not prepared, not ready, not wanting to have a child yet, to me, and maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but that is the epitome of lacking self-accountability. And nobody wants to address that. We want to address, like, well, men shouldn't speak on this, men shouldn't. Look, listen. All right, so I'm going to ask Kevin because, or Superpower, sorry, because you had said in your opening that, okay, you said men can't have babies. My question to you would you be willing to say that to the LGBTQ community?
I know what you're doing here. It's a cute little political tactic. No, it's a Steven Crowder type tactic. I get it. I know what you're doing.
I mean,
No. Here's the thing, preacher. Here's the thing, preacher. Look, let's just be real about something. I want to address something at large here, which is that regardless of the decision here upheld by the Supreme Court, regardless of what the law is on paper, abortions are going to happen in America. They're going to happen in red states and blue states. The issue is if you overturn Roe v. Wade, you overturn that precedent, and you set it to the states, guess what? If you're in a red state and you need an abortion, that abortion's going to happen. And guess what? A lot of women are going to die in unsanitary conditions. So this idea of, it's pro-life or whatever is bullshit. And additionally, just to close here, I want to be very clear about something as well, which is that when it comes down to this, you can say it's about freedom of choice, all that kind of stuff. Oh, you can move to a blue state or whatever. The fact of the matter is, in the United States right now, over 80% of people cannot, and this includes even some people that make a lot of money but spend it. A lot of people cannot afford even a $400 emergency bill, never mind afford to move to another state. So guess what? A lot of people are going to be trapped in places like Florida, Texas, Kansas, and elsewhere. And a lot of those women, especially women in these sorts of conditions, are not financially able to move to other states. So what you've done is essentially signed off, morally at least, on the death warrant of tens of thousands of women over the next decade that will die in unsanitary conditions having abortions. You haven't stopped abortion. You haven't stopped abortion. You've just made it unsafe.
I'm not sure what you mean by
So
that.
here's
It's like
the
any
thing.
illegal abortions.
So when you outlaw abortion,
One moment.
when you outlaw abortion,
Can you give me
hold on
one moment? I just want to make sure that was back and forth with preacher. I'll put your name now. Next start us. I just want to make sure preacher can respond.
I just wanted to, I'm not being a smartass when I say this. I don't understand what you mean by putting tens of thousands, being in a red state means they have a better chance of dying or whatever it is you're saying. I don't understand that.
Like the clothes hangers, all those sorts of memes. You haven't seen that stuff.
Yeah.
You don't know that women are going to get abortions.
So they have
You
a
don't know that
propensity
women are going to get abortions.
So they have a propensity to committing criminal acts, is what you're saying. Because at that point,
so
it's crime.
you-
No.
They deserve to
Listen
die.
to the law.
Okay.
Abortions are going to happen. So why not make it safe?
No, I'm not
Yes.
saying they deserve to
If
die.
you look at the,
abortions
I'm trying to
will
understand.
happen
Okay.
regardless.
Okay.
If you know how the female anatomy works, it's not hard to figure out how to use a wire coat hanger.
So we will have every other reason other than, hey, maybe have a little bit of self-control.
Yeah, well, guess what? Guess that's
That
easy,
doesn't really
easy
avoid the
for you to
question,
say,
though, Preacher.
preacher. You're a male, dude. You're a fucking man. You like you were saying, you're never gonna have that experience. Guess what? You're in a position of privilege here, and you're trying to uphold
Not a
what is
position of
literally termed
privilege.
the patriarchy.
This is not male or
This
female
is
because the
literally
fetus
you
is-
trying to uphold the classic patriarchy, essentially.
No,
And
what
you
it
can
is
laugh,
me
but
trying to
it's
say
literally
that if we
true.
create-
Okay, wait, calm down. Okay. We're gonna. Oh man, who doesn't love this topic? We're gonna take this slowly. I saw other people wanted to talk as well. Stardust, did you ever get to say what you wanted to say? I'm gonna go Stardust.
I'm sorry, Stardust. I don't mean to step all over you.
And we're probably gonna go back and forth between Preacher since everybody is responding to Preacher. I want to make sure he gets to respond to these things. So Stardust, most likely Preacher. Then I think Zerg wanted to say something a while earlier. So Zerg, and I saw Loner. So bring it around to Loner.
Okay. All right. So first thing I want to say is I would never say that men don't have a space in this conversation. I think it is important for men to take part in this conversation. But what I would say is that I agree with what Superpower Broadcasting is saying about, yes, when you outlaw abortion in any place, you will see a spike in back alley abortions. It is not hard to figure out how to use a wire coat hanger if you know how the female anatomy works and you know where the amniotic sac is. It's not that hard. And then I would say, you can look at examples of other countries where abortion has been banned. Romania is one of those places. And when because of that, all these women would give their newborns to be adopted or give them to orphanages, and a lot of the time they would find these orphanages filled with children that were neglected. Some of them were chained to their beds. Some of them had not had any affection for those early years of their lives. I mean, I don't ever want to force somebody to live and have to live that kind of life where they have to be chained in an orphanage like a prisoner, I'm sorry. It's just when you outlaw abortion, there are so many things societally that are affected by that, whether that is all of these already low income women who have further economic hardship, who choose to stay in violent relationships because they think that they can't raise these children by themselves. They expose their existing children to that violent household. They expose their newborn to that violent household. These are children who grow up with abusive households because of that. There's no way to look at this and not see that this is going to have a detrimental effect on the outer community and society.
Preacher, did you want to respond? Or Dog, if Preacher's fine with that.
Well, I just want to say real quick, to sit there and say that because, and I'm not talking to Stardust, I'm talking to Superpower here, to sit there and say that I'm a man and therefore I have no say in this, you can get off the feminist soapbox on that, because I'm going to tell you right now, what you're essentially saying is that fathers don't matter. Fathers don't count.
Not what he's
That's
saying.
exactly what you're
that's not
saying.
what I'm saying. That's disingenuous.
Because I'm not the one carrying the baby, I have no say. But listen, it doesn't come down to it's the man or it's the woman. It comes down to the life inside, which is a fetus, a child, and that's what it comes down to. Protection of that life.
So
after you're finished responding to him, can you respond to my points as well?
Yes.
Well, I got a question for Preacher. I got a question for you, Preacher.
Yes.
Given that the abortion's going to happen, whether it's through a coat hanger method in a back alley, and yeah, it's not legal, but whatever, it's going to happen. So that fetus is not making it to birth, or it's legal and it's medically safe and the woman's fine afterwards. Which would you prefer? Because all that stuff about accountability almost seems like you're implying that they deserve it, that they deserve to be punished, right?
That's just asinine for one thing. I would never, ever say. I don't say that even about someone who gets shot by the police. Oh, well, they deserved it because they're a criminal. No, nobody deserves to die. Nobody deserves that punishment. But sitting there saying, well, they're going to use a coat hanger instead is no reason when we could talk about what happens prior to conception. Maybe start having some self-accountability. I'm coming to you.
Seriously? Seriously?
You're kind of
let me
Preacher. You're
hold
dodging.
on. Let me
Okay, well,
switch over to
okay, I just want to make sure Stardust gets a response.
If I can just give, I'll give. I think Superpower Broadcasting maybe didn't word it right. What I can say is that, like, on average, for the average dude who doesn't really give a crap, right? Or I don't know. It just, if we look physically, right, men can spread their seed and kind of like take off. Right, like that's just the reality of the situation. Whereas a woman, when you get pregnant, you have to carry that for however long it takes. So that's I think that's what maybe he was trying to say. I'm not sure if I'm being generous.
I get what you're
Can
saying.
I jump in here real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so first and foremost, the idea that abortion is going to be outright banned across the United States is like further from the truth. If the worst case scenario that Roe v Wade were to be overturned, realistically, it'd be left to the states to create their own abortion laws. You would have, now, I'm not saying we can get into the conversation about whether or not it's right or wrong because you have to travel. That's fine. The fact is that you have states like California and New York, for example, who would uphold their own abortion laws, and you've seen how they are. They are going to have their own. Texas will have their own. But, however, I don't see that being the very likely scenario from here. I think that the decision we're going to see handed down is if anything, that the viability line is going to be drawn down to 15 weeks, if anything. That's the realistic expectation that I'm going to see from the Supreme Court. Is it possible that Roe v. Wade could get overturned? Sure, but I see a lot more questions being tossed around the Supreme Court as to the viability. And to the second note, I keep hearing that men shouldn't have, some saying men shouldn't have a say. I would encourage anybody to look at the 70s and probably one of the most misogynistic times in our country and look at who the Supreme Court was mainly consisted of. Guess what? Old white men, surprisingly. So next time you say men should have a right, the people who made the decision on Roe v. Wade were old men. And probably in the time at the 70s were probably one of the more misogynistic areas for men to be in the first place. And they were the ones who sat there and said that the right of the woman is basically should not be up to the state to decide. And it should also be held as well, I believe, to the unborn as well. It should be equal. There should be certain respects given in the state's interest to both of these parties, the unborn and the woman. So these are two things to think about. So when we sit here and talk about this, I think that we're talking about way out of the reality of what's going to happen with an outright ban on abortion in the nation. Very far from the truth. If anything, it's going to be down to the states, and even that seems farther from the truth than a lower on the viability line.
Yeah. Nobody said that it was going to be like a ban altogether. The point is, it's going to be basically a divide between red states and blue states. So you talked about lowering the viability, threshold there, basically down to 15 weeks. The problem with that is, you can have, Roe v. Wade is still intact or whatever. We've just gutted it. We've just completely taken away all of its meaning. Well, that's basically what they're trying to do. It's not just a simple, let's just get rid of it.
I do want to engage with Preacher if it's possible.
Let's let Kevin. I would like Kevin. Kevin was talking and he was interrupted. I just want to make sure Kevin finished his statement. But there's a bunch of people who need to talk. So I know I want to make sure that they get to speak too because they haven't spoken yet. So Kevin, I'm gonna have you finish, and then we have Zerg, Loner, and then we're gonna go to Preacher and James. Okay,
thanks, Dylan. Yeah, so just to conclude here, basically, the problem is that we're getting to ranges of time periods now, 15 weeks or less in the future, where some women aren't even aware that they're pregnant necessarily. Down the road is what they're looking at. They're basically they're pushing to move this to a point that eventually you'll have it where you can't even get an abortion once you're aware that you're pregnant. That's the end goal, basically. So we can say, it's not totally overturning Roe v. Wade. It's to declaw Roe v. Wade to the point that if you're in a red state, abortion is for all intents and purposes inaccessible to you. And as I said before, a lot of people in these situations do not have the financial means to just go to a blue state. So yeah, that's my point there. Thanks, Dylan.
Zerg?
So I think there's some interesting points were made. Superpower broadcasting, I agree with what you were saying. I think the point I wanted to raise at the time about the rate of abortions. I mean, if you look at the rate of abortions in the US preceding and proceeding the Roe versus Wade decision, there was really no change in the amount of abortions happening. Just the health outcomes of the people involved in those procedures were a lot worse prior to the Roe versus Wade decision. So I think if you're coming out for an argument of pro-life, specifically in the discussion of Roe versus Wade, I'm not sure that makes a big difference. I agree with Doghouse's show interpretation of the likely outcome in that it is more likely that the viability is to be reduced from 24 weeks to 15 weeks. My question is, what is the reasoning for lowering that? I mean, that's what I was trying to get at in my opening statement is, what are your reasons why that should be 15 weeks instead of 24 weeks? And that has to be a pretty good reason to justify taking away those liberties. Preacher, to your point about there should be some accountability for women, I think no one's saying that men can't have a say in the discussion, but to make out like you understand the position of women when it comes to like having sex and getting pregnant and the realities of what that means, all that we're trying to say basically is that you can't have a full understanding of what that's like and the pressures they're facing. And for you to make out like it's about personal responsibility, I think that's just such a naive way of interpreting the situation specifically, and that there's a lot of factors in place that could lead to someone getting pregnant that aren't just outright rape or abuse. You know, there could be drug use, alcohol use, pressure, people being too young, like in a big age gap relationship. There's loads of reasons why someone might find themselves pregnant without fully making a conscious decision to be so. And if you try and outlaw abortion from these people, the data basically just shows that anyone who wanted an abortion and couldn't get one, going to lead to higher rates of pregnancy complications, higher rates of domestic abuse, higher rates of anxiety, depression, lingering health problems after the pregnancy. And these are all factors that affect the children after they're born as well. And ultimately, all you're doing is reinforcing the cycle of poverty that exists for the lower income people that may want access to these abortions in the first place. Just makes things worse for everyone.
Okay, Brant, did you want to respond directly to anything you just said? Raise your hand.
Kind of basic. It's basically off the whole vibe here. I wanted to get consensus from the group. If federally we were to take Roe v. Wade, turn it from case law into just a law, and say that, in the spirit of compromise, because I think a lot of this is about finding a compromise that both sides of the table can come to and agree on and have continuity. I look at it, if 12 weeks, no fault abortion was legal, and then after 12 weeks, you were subject to, let's say, some type of health panel or a health board for which would weigh your case for sensitive sexual crimes, different things like that, special circumstances, would everyone here be supportive of that law up to 12 weeks? After 12 weeks, you can't get away with no fault. You'd have to go through a panel or a board that would weigh that circumstance, and those would probably be appointed or elected people within the state. Would y'all support something like that? And that even goes to conservatives or right leaners on the particular panel. Would you be supportive of something like that? Are you willing you willing to come to the table and compromise in any way that can make both sides?
Huge...
Wait. Just
I understand. I understand.
We're gonna go to wait. We're gonna go to Loner because he was next on the list. Don't worry, I have everybody's name written down. Loner, Preacher, then James. Don't worry, James. I see you.
Yeah, just because there are two sides of an argument, that doesn't mean you need to compromise. I'm sorry. Like some sides can just be wrong. As for like, this isn't about just like, is Roe v. Wade going to be overturned completely? That's not how progress and its rolling back works. It's a process. And like, as in for even with Roe v. Wade existing right now, then there's still an issue that in a lot of red states, there's just such a limited amount of abortion clinics that there are already obstacles there. So Stardust, I think you maybe made a mistake in the very beginning there asking men about whether or not they would actually go through a pregnancy if they could, because you're just asking them if they think they would. You know, they don't know. You can give any answer you want. And just in case you're wondering, Preacher, we mean cis men, trans men can give birth. I didn't know you were going to be like a fucking hallway school monitor over the literal definitions. But yeah, there are lots of analogous studies to this. Like if you have, they've experimented with male contraception that had side effects that were about a third as bad as the contraception they generally give to women, and men refuse to take it. So yeah, I mean, I don't really think it's worth speculating on whether or not men would do like what men are saying they would do when it comes to pregnancy. But I think you're kind of just dodging the question when you say that, well, people will just use back alley abortions. Well, they shouldn't do that. They should have personal responsibility. Well, no, that means you're not. That means you basically like reveal to us that you're not actually for banning abortion. You're just for banning safe abortion. You can't actually ban all the ways people get abortions. And we know what the 70s were like. We know what measures people went to pre-1970s to abort their children. It's not about what you think should happen. It's about what will happen.
Is it my turn?
Yep, Preacher, you're next on the list.
All right. First, I
Dog,
wanted
you
to-
dog,
do
you
wanna go
dog.
down.
I got you now.
I do want to go down to what Stardust was saying, because Stardust brought up some good stuff. And I agree with you about those situations. And to show that I am actually pro-life, not just pro-birth. I understand that we do have issues within the adoption program, within the foster care program, and they need to be addressed. And I think if we can address them, then that gives that avenue, that alternative. But the problem is, if you look at most abortion clinics, women aren't even offered those options, at least not on the most part. They're not offered the option. They're more pushed towards the abortion than they are towards adoption or anything else like that. I do agree that there are situations where we do need to fix the life after birth for the children. Yes, I agree with that. I just don't agree with terminating children until it's perfect. But hold on, I want to address the other two, and then you can yell at me all you want. I swear. I've been divorced. I'm used to being yelled at. I swear you can yell at me all you want. But I want to say to Brant, I agree with what you're saying. I probably would agree with what you're saying, but I look at it like this, and if somebody said it, just because there's two sides to each conversation doesn't mean there has to be any compromise. And that's just it, because the heartbeat bill is compromised. The heartbeat bill is saying, listen, we'll compromise. We don't want to get rid of it completely, but at least have a little bit of humanity at the heartbeat. No, it's like Metallica, kill them all. You can't. It's all or nothing with a lot of the people on the left. And to sit here saying that because I'm saying that people should have more self-accountability means I'm just okay with backyard abortions. No, it's not what it's saying. You guys are I'm not too far from Hershey Park, and they have a roller coaster called the Super Duper Looper, which goes like you guys going every which way except for saying, you know what, maybe a little bit of self-accountability. I understand, like you said, drugs get involved, alcohol gets involved. This is self-accountability.
It's not though, because people's circumstances, how they grow up, the world they grow up in, their mental health, all of those imply
are you talking about someone
higher
being
rates
forced to get drunk or high?
Not forced, no, obviously, just more likely to do so if they're in worse situations.
Preacher, who forced you to speak English?
Yeah. So the abortion is the
Okay. Wait. Stop. Don't make me mute. I'll mute people.
Oh my God.
Don't stop.
I've got
that loner.
No, we're gonna get muted. Stop it.
That Preacher.
Now I see how you got muted before.
Okay, so Preacher's okay, so this is what we're gonna do. Okay, so a lot of people wanted to respond and say stuff at once. Who was the first? I actually lost track. Who was the first person to open their mouth?
I'm trying to talk for a minute since he.
Dog. There's a process here. There's a lot of people. Okay, dog. You gotta quiet down
first.
Okay.
I get it, Dylan. You haven't seen me.
Okay, dog's muted too because we're in an authoritarian state who hates the righties. Okay, so. I'm going to go back to the list then, but I'm gonna have Stardust respond first, because I think the Metallica kill 'em all statement should get a response. I'll unmute the righties now if they behave. Dog, you're next after James, I promise.
All right. So, what I would say, in response to, I believe that you said that we need to fix the system. Would you be willing to pay more in taxes to fix that system, to provide for the health care and for the taking care of children up until the age of 18? Because that's what we're going to have to do.
Very interesting question.
That's
what I would
tax. That's a tax I would support. That's honestly one I would support.
Then, secondly, I would say, would you support the implementation of comprehensive sex education in all schools so that people know how to prevent getting pregnant, people know how to protect themselves, people know how to prevent abuse, prevent rape, prevent themselves from getting pregnant?
Now, maybe this is my ignorance, but I did learn that in school. Our school taught that, so If it's not taught nationwide, then maybe it should be. Yes,
It's not.
definitely.
It's not.
Well,
There are areas where it's abstinence only. Abstinence only actually leads to higher rates of teen
see, okay,
pregnancy in the
I
areas.
am a minister. I do not push abstinence only. I am not naive. I came to ministry later on. I was a teenager. I know that abstinence only isn't going to work, but I do agree with health classes teaching protection and all the other stuff that you were saying. Maybe not at like the 5th grade level, but
I would teach it earlier than that. I would teach it as early as possible because that's
you
how we
think
prevent
kids that
people
young
from
can
getting
really-
abused.
Sixth
Yes,
grade.
children get abused at any age, and the only way that
Right.
they know they're being abused is if they get that
I see what
comprehensive
you're
sex
saying.
education. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I'll agree with you on that. I was just saying, like, when it comes to like this, the protectionist stuff, I didn't know if children that young could really understand it. But I see what you're saying. Yes. Okay. I agree
Are you
with you.
talking
on
about like full on biology? Or are you talking about if a stranger approaches you, stranger danger?
Not even
don't
about
accept-
strangers. It's
Okay,
not about
okay.
strangers. The majority of the
Okay.
people who abuse you are going to be people in your family.
Yeah.
So I
that.
mean,
So they
people
understand
you know.
that this is not
Well, no,
right.
just
So
that,
they
I
know-
was more so like putting a broader term on it.
Okay, but when I say comprehensive sex education, children need to know that their family member touching their genitals is inappropriate, or their family member forcing them to perform oral on them is inappropriate. They need to know
agree.
these kinds of things.
That I agree
Sure.
with.
So
Okay, so you agree with higher taxes and with earlier comprehensive sex education.
Yeah, I agree that
God.
with that tax. But I also agree there's a lot of
Okay.
other taxes we could
Yeah,
cut.
fuck
And do
taxes.
you
lost
do
the
you
attack.
we need to bring up. Okay. I don't have any more questions at this point.
I have a question, if that's all right.
Yeah, and we better get the doghouse before he explodes.
I had a bunch of other points, a bunch of other arguments ago. So now we're at this point. I think I'm going to go with the sole argument that if you consume 14 minutes of this entire first hour spouting the words personal responsibility and women should just think about what they're doing, and you never once even solely side reference the responsibility of men in the process of making babies, your argument is pretty much trash. That's the only word I'm going to get in edgewise, so I'll just leave it there.
Well, that was directed pretty solidly at Preacher. Preacher, do you want to respond to that?
Directly.
Doghouse, I'll be real quick, I promise. I'm glad that's the only word you're going to get in edgewise because your arguments are trash. Just because I didn't speak about men doesn't mean there isn't a point where men are responsible. Obviously, men are
It
responsible.
just never occurred to you to mention it.
But men aren't the ones having the abortion. So we were talking about the abortion. If you want to talk about the men's part, I can have a whole discussion on that because dudes are dogs. Guys, good guys in relationships have a shit time dealing in a relationship because the woman's been treated like crap by so many other guys. Yeah, guys are friggin' dogs. Guys are pigs. I know that. And somebody else said it. Maybe it'll Stardust, but the guys will go around and plant the
Queen.
seed. I know that. I agree with that. I'm not saying that guys are totally excusable here. Hell no. They're totally responsible too.
I
Both
literally
need
had
to
to
have-
mention it before you even conceded that men were part of the process of women magically getting pregnant.
Because we were talking about the abortion part.
How do
Men
you
aren't
think
having
they
the
get to
abortion.
needing the abortion?
Oh my gosh.
Look, guys, I think we've already established that Preacher is pro comprehensive sex ed, early comprehensive sex ed, and pro raising taxes. I think we have created a feminist here. So, I mean,
so
Okay, Doghouse.
I have all love and respect for women.
Conservative.
I don't know that.
Doghouse is next, and Doghouse, you know our rules. I
I'm
gotta use the
gonna-
bathroom, so please follow
Hey,
them.
can you mute Doghouse
All right,
while you're
that's cool.
gone?
No, don't you do that. Thank you. So I'm going to reel this back to the Supreme Court for just a second to address the conversation that happened like 30 minutes ago in response to superpower broadcasting and the idea of the lowering of the line. This was brought up in the Supreme Court case that just happened with Mississippi in the oral arguments. I believe it was Sotomayor who asked the Center for Reproductive Rights about, so life changes after 15, and they got into a conversation, and then Center for Reproductive Rights mentioned if we end up implementing this viability line and lowering it, then it'll inevitably, like you said, states would race to the bottom. Justice Roberts said the issue at hand is the 15 weeks viability line. They're not worried right now about the 6, the 2, the 3. That could get brought up later. Right now, their main concern is that Mississippi's law specifically states 15 weeks. So, could it happen? Sure. Will it go to the Supreme Court? Very likely. So right now, the issue at hand primarily is 15 weeks. In fact, Roe v. Wade and and here's the thing too to keep in mind is that all of these arguments are going to get stacked with precedent. So things that I don't think that just because Roe v. Wade maybe it gets overturned, I doubt it. I think that what you're going to see is the more that these rulings come out, the stronger, in my opinion, that it may come down to that you're not going to get an outright ban on abortion because all of these justices are going to have a say in what this actual case is. And the justices do look at these abortions and they held, and matter of fact, what we're having this conversation right now, they are scared to death. They're like, we don't want this to be a political thing. And Kavanaugh, who ironically, a lot of them are asking, Sotomayor, Kavanaugh, Amy Cohen Barrett, she was asking, look, how do we make sure that this doesn't get viewed as political? We don't want to overturn Roe v. Wade in this hot political time because it can be viewed as political. And they want to make sure that the courts try to stay apolitical as possible.
So to respond to that, basically, what that means, though, you can extrapolate from this and say, well, if they're doing this and lowering here, then that's going to set new precedent. You can understand how, in terms of precedent, you can say, oh, we're just going to laser focus on this. But no, we can look at the bigger picture. And so this is why I make this point right now, which is that just as in foreign policy, when Putin takes Crimea in eastern Ukraine, he doesn't end there. And if we give him that, that's just appeasement. Likewise,
knew it had to come out at some point.
15 weeks, they're going to keep moving. So if you appease people, they take an inch. You appease them again, they take a mile. And where do we wind up? We wind up in a fascist world.
Down the line. Each of those cases are going to be different cases that are going to be handled at the Supreme Court level.
Precedent on its side to push for
but
more.
You go down. Right? I understand what you're saying,
so
but what I'm telling you is
now. Why not resist now? Why not resist now?
I'm saying that to worry about something at 3 weeks or 6 weeks when that's not the case at hand right this very minute. Right now, the case that's important is this one right here with Mississippi at 15 weeks. And that's the conversation we should be having. Do I think it should be 15? From all the things I listened to and heard, I don't think I quite understood the reason that it went down 15. I don't even know really. I think the 24 weeks is because it's the end of the first trimester, which is what the Roe v. Wade initially had held.
It's the start of viability.
The second trimester, yeah. And so I believe that's why like the 24 weeks is set. I think that 15 seems a little bit arbitrary. I don't understand why.
Well,
15
that's the point, isn't it? That's the point.
They're trying to bring it to zero. They're
Well,
trying to bring it to
just-
zero.
You just said it yourself, though. That's so even we can say then, like, even if this is just like if it's just 15 or if it's just heartbeat, as if that's a compromise. Well, no, but we can attack that on its own merits completely because it's the same thing. It's trying to reduce the number of abortions based on an arbitrary opinion on where the fetus becomes a human life. And I guess, Preacher, if you're saying the heartbeat bill, let's have some humanity, otherwise kill them all. So I'm guessing you would say that once there's a beating heart, then if you abort that, you're taking a human life. Is that what you think? Just a yes or no. Preacher, you're muted.
Yes.
That's taking a human life.
Yes.
What should the penalty be for that?
Well, I'm not sure what the penalty should be.
Why? For what should it be like? Should it be the same as if you murdered like an adult?
I mean, many states it still is that if you were to kill a pregnant woman or injure a pregnant woman and her baby die, then yes, it's the same.
Yeah, because you're deciding for that pregnant woman whether or not the child dies. That's kind of different. That's her choice to make, not yours.
Yeah,
so
but it's two charges.
For having an abortion, yeah, I know, because the pregnant woman would have the choice, not the person who murdered her. That's very different. I'm asking about having an abortion.
About the murder of the baby. Okay,
I'm asking because I don't think there's any states where having an abortion carries the same penalty as murder, does it?
I don't think there's any around.
No, there isn't.
Do you think it should?
I don't know if it should be. I'm not exactly.
Why would you
sure
struggle to answer that if you're taking a life, if it's killing them all, if it's not having humanity? Why are you struggling to make that decision?
Because maybe it's
same
not the situation as someone. Go ahead, Brant.
Okay.
Every state has different.
After
interpretations
Brant,
for
by
what
the way,
murder
Star.
is.
So close.
No, that's why, and I want to know what the difference is.
my
If you're saying it's a human life, and if it's like we're saying kill them all by aborting them.
Brent, no, I said after
was
you would
actually brought
star. You
up by
can
the
no, wait,
Supreme
stop.
Court case.
Brent, you can go on. I said after you would star. Brent,
Oh,
you
okay,
can do
okay,
it.
well, I was going to say every state, like for instance, what's going on with all these court cases that have been nationally publicized, the definition of murder, the definition of self-defense, all of these things are arbitrarily reinterpreted or interpreted 50 times. 50 different states have different statute for what murder is. So when you're talking about abortion, you're talking about, and see, like I said, personally in my household, we're pro-life. I would consider that murder. But at the same time, if another state says that they'll allow that, at that point, by the state's terms, it's not really deemed in a legal stance as murder. So it really depends on what state that you're in, what they designate as intentional or indirect homicide. And then that would better answer the question that you posed to Preacher about, well, how would you punish person for...
So if
Yeah,
a different state made murder legal,
really...
would you be happy with that?
If a different state...
Like
well,
if,
I mean, I'm a minarchist, so I wouldn't worry about
if
what
Texas
their laws
made
are. They wouldn't...
murder legal, would you be like, oh, well, it's okay? 'cause
Oh,
it's
yeah, I
legal
would
in
fucking
Texas?
hate it. Yeah, duty as a constituent if I feel as though my rights are being infringed.
Okay, well, not Texas then. Some other states, sorry.
According
city you don't live
to
in.
the Constitution, they can't.
Yeah, well, exactly. But according to Roe versus Wade, right? That's a federal law, not the Constitution. But you're trying to roll back.
It's
on
not
that.
a. It's not a federal. Well, I mean, yeah, I was gonna say it's not.
Okay.
It's
So
not federal,
that's-
like,
we'll get one second.
Oh, I'm not
give it-
denying that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to drag it over to Star. They've been waiting very patiently.
Yeah, thank you. So I do have several questions here. Let me know if they become too much at any time. So I just want to respond to one point earlier. Somebody had asked if I would compromise on the abortion thing. No, never. Sorry, not gonna do it. After everything that I've listed, as far as the likelihood to experience economic hardship, the maternal bonding, exposure to violence in the home, domestic violence, all of these things, there's no compromise for me. The societal effects of that are way too much for me to ever consider compromising on that. But I did have some questions to ask. One of them is, I expect that several people here believe that life begins at conception. I would ask what happens to eggs that are fertilized but don't implant in the womb, because about apparently between 1/3 and 1/2 of all fertilized eggs never fully implant. Are those just babies that die? And if so, why are we not doing more to prevent those from dying?
Just to expand on that point,
miscarriages.
if you look at the miscarriage rate, it's about 1 in 4. So there's 3.75 million births in the US every year. That means there's about 1.25 million
I'm
miscarriages.
asking a question, bro.
Yeah, but I'm saying it would be the highest cause of death in the United
Okay,
States
thank
by
you.
a long, long
Thank
while.
you for. I'm asking a question. Somebody please answer me.
It sounds like it just sounds. I mean, I'm not. It sounds to me like that's a miscarriage, and that would how we would.
It's not a
prevent
miscarriage. It's not a miscarriage. So between it's specifically an egg that does not implant. This does not even
it's a
get to the
fertilized
part of
egg.
being. It's a fertilized egg, but it does not implant. It is not
It
a
didn't fuse
miscarriage
to
because
the-
it never implanted. It never implanted.
I can answer that question
Is
for
that
you,
a dead
Stardust.
baby?
Yeah,
Don't
I'll-
answer it
Stardust,
for me.
can
I
I-
want one of them to answer for me. Okay.
No, can I
Well,
answer
it's
for them?
That's just an ejected embryo that never fused, is what that is.
I'm
So it's not it's not a dead
because
child.
the reason why it's not a child yet is because naturally it wouldn't have grown the path at which it take, not fusing, it would not have grown into a human. It needs
It's still
fusion.
conception.
Holy shit, you guys,
What?
you fucking right wingers are so bad at defending your own position. If
Wait,
you're a
wait,
right winger,
Whoa, whoa,
okay,
whoa,
like,
whoa,
I'll
whoa!
do it
First
for you.
off,
I'll do it for you.
let me address
I know
that.
you're not saying
Ah.
right wing. It's
Address
okay.
that.
Look,
Yeah,
please.
No, instantly,
go first.
every time, just because I have my own personal beliefs, a lot of people just go, oh, he's just some hard right winger. I catch flack all day with the fact that I am at least 1 to 2 feet left of almost every right winger that is a part of my community, and we can agree to disagree on things. So get that straight. Get that correct.
I was speaking very general. I was just saying you guys aren't really. This is a really easy question to answer if
Thank
you're
you,
Conveniently
loner
after I
box.
said it.
I
I
didn't
don't
ask you,
understand.
loner box.
Excuse
I
me,
just don't understand. I don't understand.
Okay. We're quieting down. We're quieting down. We're gonna have
Yeah.
a Doghouse respond to that. It seems he wants to respond as well.
Yeah, because what I'm trying to understand is the logic behind this, and even conflating this to abortion. It seems like these are two totally different situations.
Why are
Like,
we
so
not,
I don't-
Why, I mean,
But
look,
I'm not
here's the
saying
thing.
that
If
it's tragic. I'm confused on why we're
Yes.
using this topic in abortion. So if you
Yes,
could provide clarity
because-
on that, because these seems like two different
Yeah.
situations.
Sure. The reason why is because if you believe that life begins at conception, and you believe that aborting is murder, then the egg, the fertilized egg, not implanting in the womb is also post-conception, but also murder, right?
Wait, no, wait. These are,
100%
wait,
no.
hold on, wait.
Please let me answer
Yeah.
this question.
No, wait. If an egg were to be fertilized, right? Are you saying that the murder is the egg dying? Because that seems like what your definition of murder is the fact that the
I
egg
mean, it's
is
the
just
egg
no
being
longer.
washed out naturally from the woman's body. Yeah.
You think that's murder?
No.
I don't think that's what the murder is.
I mean, that's what I'm asking. Is that murder?
No,
I don't
there's a
think that's a
complete-
murder.
There's a complete and total difference between a natural dying of the egg and an intentional taking of the fetus. There's
Yeah, you'd
complete
be criminalizing women that maybe have,
I mean, there's a
particular
complete and
problems there,
total.
you know?
There's not there. You can't even put them in the same.
Yeah.
That's like saying, well, someone passed away of natural causes. Well, they must have been friggin' murdered then.
I mean, why aren't
I-
we doing more for that then instead of focusing on
Well,
abortion?
I'm sure they are.
We've got what
But
one
that's not the
third to
topic
one
of
half
tonight.
of all these souls being dying. Why are we not
Well,
doing more for that?
I mean,
Wait,
maybe
but
they
that-
are. I
okay,
don't
but-
know. But we were talking about abortion tonight, not that. So I didn't do
Maybe
research
my
on that.
definition of what I interpret, I guess my type of abortion is interrupting the natural organic process that would have naturally occurred with a human being fully conceived, crowned, birthed, cut the umbilical cord, all of that. If the fertilized egg is not even fusing, that has nothing to do with an inorganic situation that naturally, organically happened to you, and it's tragic. It's a terrible thing. I know a lot of people that suffer with that particular problem. Namely, I didn't really want to bring it up, but in my household, me and my girlfriend, we will have to consult with a doctor if we want to have. We will have to inorganically force a fusion if we want that to happen. So
Wait,
there's
are you
just,
saying that there actually are studies and stuff being done for that?
What is
I wouldn't
that?
even listen.
Well,
the thing,
is birth
the thing,
control like murder then?
The chain of sequence here just don't even match. Like the idea behind like Brant Kataya and what
Well-
Brant was saying. There's a totally line of different sequences, and then second to that, your premise is that I don't know many people. Maybe there are people. I'm sure there are people out there who believe that abortion is straight up murder and that the woman should be charged. First of all, murder is I believe, a legal definition, and something like that I don't believe. Even in Roe v. Wade, I could be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong, but I believe in Roe v. Wade, they didn't make the woman technically criminally culpable. They made the doctor. Now I understand that what the implications are. I'm just saying though that I don't think there's very many people who would say that the woman who gets the abortion should be convicted of murder in any circumstance. So I don't understand in this situation
Right,
if they
let
go
me-
get an abortion. So I would even just say that these two things between an accidental.
I'll bring it. I'll bring it closer. Okay. I'll kind of close it up. Birth control. And like the morning after pill are things that help prevent the egg from implanting. Right.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
is it by
I just
that
want you all to
definition?
know I'm firmly.
Or for men, it like kills our swimmers. Yeah, for sure.
I
By-
will inject this into this because I've said I disagree with Luder that when there's a situation like this and there's two sides of the story, there should be compromise. Do I want to see it
Right.
happen? No, but make a compromise.
Can I finish?
Sure.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, if that is the case, then is that abortion?
Contraception?
Yeah.
Do you want the
contraception-
people on the right to make compromise or just say no? You know what? No more. None of it.
I mean,
Because there's
look here. I'm
compromise
going to
being
play
made.
devil's advocate against the right
look,
here
I'm
too.
just asking.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have separated me from the right as far as this
Bastards.
classical conservatism thing where it's like completely from start to finish. And then you start seeing people move the goalposts like you're talking about. Now, all of a sudden, just because it's the pastor's daughter or somebody's, particular family member and they're within a prominent family, now all of a sudden we move the goalposts from being a life is a life to, oh, well, we took plan B. We didn't go get an abortion. We went and got a plan B. So I would have to say that the goalpost has slowed. And I don't want anybody here to take this this the wrong way. I would say that in the last bit that conservatives have been forced to be the more, being somebody who's watching as a third party from the sidelines, I've seen the conservatives been more to progressivism and the left pushing more to what you would call regressivism. And I see conservatives trying to come to the table, which the left uses an argument all the time of, oh, well, now you're you said a life was a life and now you're, what are you talking about?
It seems like I don't understand how this is related to my question.
Well, you're talking about
Because you're moving the
contraception.
goalposts.
Yeah,
You're
moving the
talking
goalposts.
about murder.
How
for
is
like,
that? How is
but your
that
definition of
moving the
miscarriage
goalposts?
is a murder.
I'm asking,
Okay,
right?
can I-
I'm asking if you prevent an egg from implanting,
I'll let this go a little
is
bit
that
more
an
before giving it
abortion
to
you?
Loner.
Well, what
It's
I've been
intention-
trying to
like-
say is clearly it's between you as a constituent and what your county and state and federally how it's voted in. If we get enough justices in there and they turn it over, that's going to be a reflection of what the constituency is right now. If the left is not willing to even come to the table and start talking about a way that we can etch something into law that also protects the other party that's involved in this, then we're always going to be standing here in a Discord called 9 Deep arguing about Roe V Wade and where we should start at as a goalpost. If you're not willing to come to the table and compromise, that's where I'm literally seeing conservatives, like you're saying, Loner Box, kind of go back on what they've traditionally had as their goalpost. It used to be something where you didn't even.
Look, I understand that this is a hard question to answer. So I guess I could ask you about stealthing, right? What do you guys think about stealthing? Should a man still be required? So here's the thing: if with this abortion law, right? If a woman says that she's on birth control, but she's not really, and she gets pregnant by a man, should that man still be required to provide for that child financially all 18 years of its life?
Holy shit! This is like wait. Can you provide like an example, like any kind of like?
Yes.
What are we talking about? Mississippi state? Like we're getting into like legal stuff. Do you know a state that this would apply to? Are you talking about Mississippi? I mean,
Regardless, you guys keep on appealing. You guys keep on appealing to how.
Or they.
Every time she asks you guys a question, you're like saying, "Well, people would vote on it, and then they would go through the state." Like we're asking you to make moral claims. We're asking you to justify your positions, and you keep on appealing to what the laws are.
No. She said, "Should." It sounded to me like she was making a legal claim, not a moral claim. It was
should it be?
Yes, it is a moral
Should the
claim.
father-
and it's a moral
should the
claim
father
as well,
be
because
responsible?
If a
That's a
woman
legal
gives
claim.
if a woman gives birth, right? If a woman, let's say this, okay? If a woman is raped, right? And abortion is no longer legal, right? Some people would say she should carry that, right? If a man is a victim of stealthing, which I personally consider that equivalent to rape, I would ask you, would you want him to be still financially responsible for that child, even though he did not ask for that child?
Absolutely not, because you're not agreeing to that circumstance, right? That's ultimately
civil liability.
The crime of rape. The crime of rape would be an isolated instance from litigation on the custody of the child. And
I was gonna
wait.
And I was gonna say no.
different?
Okay, if you want me to give a straight answer, I will say, with no other context, I wouldn't think just off the top of my head that no, the father shouldn't be responsible. But again, here you are, you're saying, oh, it's a moral claim, But what you're talking about is literally civil liability. You're not talking about a moral claim here. You're talking about civil liability.
This is a moral claim.
Okay, fine. You're
It can
okay,
be civil, but
you can't.
I'm asking
No,
for
it is
moral.
civil. You're saying should the father be financially responsible? How does that go through? That goes through the courts, which is a civil liability case, and you'd have to have a whole bunch of facts to determine.
We're asking you if it should be, if it's not a law,
he
what should
should
it
be
be?
responsible? Do you think that he should be responsible?
I just said-
Can I add a caveat? Is the husband or whoever the person is who has been disenfranchised, whichever parent has been disenfranchised, are they making a claim to be in the child's life and be a parent outside of the circumstances? That would be in my eyes, when arbitrating something like that. That would be a major factor. And if the father wants to be in the
Right,
person's
but
life,
if
the incident of ghosting choosing to have and conceive and make the child, not conceive, but birth the child. Let me correct myself here. And then after having the child, if that person wants to be in their life, can make a legal claim, I think that they should be able to. I mean, obviously the judge is going to have special custody instructions, seeing as how all of this came from, trickery. So, I mean, that's the way I would argue.
What
argue
I'm
that.
asking, the reason why I'm asking this is because a woman is held to be responsible, held to carry that child for all of those 9 months. And a lot of the time, she will continue to take care of that child afterwards. Even with the option of adoption, adoption is not a good option most of the time for
Are
people
you
in
working under the
America.
are you working under the premise of a zero abortion state, or are we talking under a premise of having a 15-week viability line? Because right now, realistically, what we are working with right now, we can argue, like me and Superpower were talking about, we could talk about future down the road of a potential of this going further and further down. But right now, in the current state that it is in, we are talking about a possibility of a 15-week viability line. So are we talking with a
thinking
0
too
or 15
legally
weeks?
about this.
She's asking you a hypothetical question.
I'm asking you a hypothetical. Yeah.
This is a silly ass hypothetical.
Oh, no, it's
We're
a
talking
What he's
moral
about-
alluding
question.
to is
It's
if
a
you're
moral
forced
You
to
can't
have-
answer it. That's okay. Just say you can't answer it. Just say you don't know. Just say it's fine.
Yeah, you can have an opinion on a legal matter on a
No,
moral
because this
basis
is the problem.
without
Listen,
that literally
I'm gonna,
being
I
what
don't
would
give
be
a fuck anymore. I'm
adjudicated.
just going to talk
Without
about
that
it because I'm
being what would
tired
be
of every
adjudicated.
time we have an
So-
abortion conversation, we always rush to the extremes. On either one, we could talk about rushing to the
It's
extreme of
irrelevant.
15
weeks
zeros.
is an
They're
extreme.
We can rush to the
15
extreme of
weeks is an
zeros,
extreme.
weeks,
I
which is what we tend to
understand this
do.
is very
And then we
upsetting
rush
for
to the
you,
extremes of
but
rape.
people-
In which
Wait,
case,
15
most people
weeks
would probably
is an
agree
extreme.
that 0 weeks is probably not the best. Most
Look,
people would
dude,
probably agree
Yell,
that
you don't need to
having
yell.
Doghouse.
I
rape is not
understand
okay.
you. I understand.
Doghouse.
You.
Okay,
You don't need
okay.
to
We're
yell
slowing
at me,
we're slowing this out. We're pausing
I'm
this
not
for a second.
yelling at you.
We're
I'm having a good conversation.
Okay.
Are you? You sound
Stop.
a little upset now,
Guys,
right now.
please stop. Okay. Loner has been waiting extremely patiently because he wanted to comment a very long time ago, and I let this go on for a little bit, so I want to make sure Loner gets to put his 2 cents in. And Brant, I can't tell if you're raising your hand or if what you're doing.
No, I wasn't. I was moving this. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, my bad.
Loner?
My bad.
Can I make a suggestion real quick? Because I noticed the two people who waited the longest have dark backgrounds. Maybe if they have a little bit more light, we could see them a little bit easier.
But I also have a dark background, so is it biased?
Yeah, but you're not raising your hand.
True. Loner?
No, but you have matching purpose, so you're good, Dylan.
Yeah, so I mean, Doghouse, what's kind of just happened for the last, 10, 15 minutes is that she asked you a question about what you think ought to happen, and you just kept on
I
asking
answered
about,
it.
no, you didn't. You didn't know because it's
I
kind
said
of
no.
it's,
A father should not be financially responsible. Rewind the clip. I said no.
okay. It took you a while. Okay, yeah, fine.
No, you can rewind the
Alright.
clip. I said
Okay,
no.
I believe you.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
thanks. It just took a really long time. Yeah, because
I know. Like, listening.
so the question. So the question with the egg implant was basically just that if life begins at conception, then if a woman uses contraception to stop the egg from implanting after it's been fertilized, would that be the same as ending a life? Because technically that egg has been fertilized. And I think the reason you don't really want to answer that question is because you know that this whole thing about whether it's a heartbeat, whether or not it's the egg being fertilized, whether or not it's the egg implanting after it's been fertilized, these are all arbitrary, which is why every time I ask you if taking a life, which you call it, should be treated like murder, you fucking shrivel up and go into this little cocoon because you know it's not the same. Because
So,
you
wait,
know
yeah,
it's not the same as murder.
Wait, why? Okay, what is your
that wasn't to
definition of
you.
murder? Okay,
My
I don't care.
definition-
I'm gonna answer anyways.
No,
What's
that
your
was addressed
definition
to
of
me.
murder?
But go ahead.
The unlawful taking of a life. What?
I love
By-
Dog,
by
Preacher, and then
someone,
Stardust had another
or-
question,
Of
so
a
we'll bring it
person.
around her.
The unlawful taking of a life of a person.
No, like in other words, does someone enable that action, or is it just in and of itself spontaneously? It just ends a life. It's murder. Like, is there another action?
There has to be, which is why you guys took so long to answer the thing with the egg implanting, because it's about intent, right? Someone has to do it, yeah, obviously, not just if you die of natural causes, it's not murder, okay?
Well, no, but
We'll make your
Stardust
point.
was implying that with the whole egg being fertilized. She literally implied that with the murder situation.
Yeah, but that's why you could have just said intent, but that's the thing. Contraception is intentionally
said
stopping
that.
taking
really
contraception. Taking contraception is intentionally stopping the egg from implanting. Therefore,
I'm
a
not-
fertilized
I'm-
egg from implanting.
Can I jump in
I'm
here
not
real quick?
opposed
because
I
it's-
myself am not opposed to an early, like,
doesn't have a heartbeat at embryo stage.
Yeah, like
two.
I'm not. You also have to ask where I'm okay with, like, because at this point, like, if you're talking about like someone that's gotten impregnated within a week or two, if I'm okay with that fetus being aborted, I'm fine with that. So you should probably also ask that premise too, because honestly, I don't give a shit if someone takes a birth control and that egg implants and it passes by natural causes or because of the abortion pill or because of the contraceptive.
Okay, then the
I'm
question
fine
wasn't
with
for
that.
you.
Yeah, that was the question for
the
Preacher,
question
though, because
wasn't for
Preacher's talking
you.
about taking a life.
Preacher.
Here's
Man,
where
Wait.
Okay.
Preacher.
here's where the confusion is coming from. You have one side who has literally said absolutely no compromise. Our side, am I happy about it? No, but I'm willing to compromise. That's where all the confusion's coming from, is that you guys have no compromise. So, well, Preacher, well, you're moving your. I'm not moving my goalpost. I'm compromising. I'm saying, listen, I'm not happy about it. I would rather this not happen. But if you take the morning after pill, at least you've done that before the heartbeat. You know, I'm not happy about it, but it's a compromise I'm willing to make. The heartbeat pill, a compromise I'm willing to make, because you know what? Maybe we do want to have some safe abortions out there, right? I guess that's what we're saying, because we think I don't. I do. If they're going to do it, it should be safe. So, you know what? Let's make a compromise. The heartbeat bill. No, that's not enough. That's not enough. We want them whenever we want, wherever we want, how many as we want. You guys aren't willing to compromise, so we're never going to see eye to eye. It's going to be nothing but confusion and bad faith argument.
I'm
That's where
sorry,
it's going
I'm
to
not
end.
compromising on my own body. I'm
Yeah,
not
I
think you're
compromising
It's
on
not
my
your
own body.
body. It's not your body.
It is.
No,
it's
think-
attached to me.
Preacher.
I think your
Preacher.
complete lack of ability to make a coherent argument is very exemplified by you appealing to compromise every single
We're
time.
talking past each other.
there doesn't need to just be a compromise every time there are two opposing
there
opinions.
does.
If someone
We're
wants
talking
to,
about a life. Yes, there does.
You talking about
So if a-
autocratic
I'm
rule
sorry,
now?
if a-
Now,
so
keep
if
in
a-
mind,
Okay,
we
wait,
believe that
okay.
life starts at conception, but there can also be an
Devil is
argument about
dictator.
viability, which
Okay.
viability
We're
means
making-
that the ability for it
so-
to exist outside of the womb. So there could be an instance where, like, for example, Preacher or even me, maybe, that believes that life begins at contraception, but that that life may not be viable outside of the womb, for example, right? So this is the biggest question: is that when it comes down to an abortion or prescribing a legal argument for this, is where do you believe that viability line should be? And as a compromise, I think, to kind of piggyback off of Preacher, I would say that as a compromise, sure. Like I said before, I don't care if you take the morning after pill and everything else, because it's probably not viable at that point. I don't know if there's any scientific studies that shows that an embryo at 1 week or 2 days or an hour, which was mentioned in Roe V Wade, by the way, I don't think it's viable outside of the womb. So I don't mind that.
Okay, wait.
25 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Star had one more question. I want to make sure we got this question out. I want to make sure we can bring it over to Preacher so he can respond. Zerg raised his hand a while ago, or Nick. So
Yeah.
I'll bring it over to him as well.
Okay. So you going to me first or someone else?
Well, it was going to be Star, Preacher, then you.
Okay.
I was. I'm sorry. Chad is making really funny jokes. No, I was just making a joke earlier. It's not my body. It's the state's body. It's our body now. We're communists now. No, I'm just kidding. Right. The other question that I had was, do you guys agree then if this abortion is no if you had, I guess, these restrictions on abortion, would you agree then that men who provide the sperm for that have to pay all living costs for the mother and child above the poverty line if the woman has had the child independent from relationship status? Or would you prefer the state to pay for
Is it okay if I give two answers?
Sure.
Okay, so if abortion is illegal and it is completely, let's say, 0 weeks, it's completely outlawed, then the person probably would be liable. If abortion was legal, and which changes up the choice, gives you more of a choice of having the child, then I would be privy to then, at least giving the other party, the male, the option to either be in the child's life or sign away custody rights But I don't know if I would just much rather, or if I would just like say, hey, you're just on the hog for 18 years. I don't know if I could do that.
Right. So here's the thing about that. I understand what you're saying, that men should be able to have a paper abortion, which I agree with. But in the case that abortion is no longer viable, not viable, no longer an option for women, a lot of women will not feel confident in putting that child up for adoption, just because knowing how the adoption system works in America. Therefore, I think it's fair that if a woman decides to, even though she didn't want that child, take care of that child, not put it in the adoption system, I think it's fair that we have a way for these women who are below the poverty line to be able to support themselves and their child. So I would say that the man who provided the sperm to make that child would have to either support that woman and that child for the next 18 years, regardless if he's involved or not, or we raise the taxes and we have the state provide it.
Well, it's actually, other than the cases like you were talking about
Taxes or
stealth
death.
before, which I'm sure is very few, but in any other case, like there's a group at the most county courthouses called domestic relations, where women will go and file for child support, where that man is indebted the child support till the child's 18 or 21 if they go to college. I fully agree with that. If a man creates a child and doesn't either be in the home with the mother and raise that child together, or if for some reason you guys don't get along, which obviously happens, then hell yeah, he should, and he should be able to be a part of that child's life, and hell yeah, he should be supporting that child. There's no reason why I can't stand that.
Would that be considered socially conservative, forcing in a way, at least economically, that I guess monetarily
it would not be. That would, I feel like that would be more forcing somebody to pay for a child and another person who they are not directly involved with for the next 18 years or 21 years is not really a conservative thing. It's not really a thing that a lot
it is
of
kind of
conservatives-
conservative. No, it is conservative. No, it is pretty conservative.
Financially, I don't know. I don't know about that.
No, it is pretty conservative. No, it is pretty conservative because you're implying there that
conservative, but financially, no, not really.
That's
right?
socially conservative.
It is because you're implying then that men are expected to be the breadwinners, and so therefore they have to pay. That's an old school understanding of financial relations.
Yeah.
Yeah, and self accountability.
I would say though that seems like a great idea, though. To be honest, I think like that's a pretty damn good idea. Fleshing it out the specifics, I would want to, in a way, look at that. But if the man wanted to opt out and the woman was able to gain sole custody and the man would not be in the child's life at all,
I think allowed to opt out.
Oh, you don't think he should be able to opt out?
If we're going to ban all abortion, then he should not be allowed
conservative.
to opt out.
I agree with
He's
you.
not allowed to opt out.
And I'll tell you right now, I'm in Pennsylvania. A man cannot opt out, and in order for a mother to have his rights removed, I know our county judge, as I know specific cases, will insist that she be in a relationship and that person she's in the relationship is willing to adopt. That and I mean I agree with that, but no, I don't think a man should be able to opt out if you created a life.
I just have to ask a question, Stardust. Do you know?
Then after this, we got to go to Zurich.
Can you name anybody on this panel who's advocated for a zero flat out no abortion ban? Can you name anybody on this panel who's advocated for that? I'm just curious.
But that's what the ideal is, right?
Oh, okay. Well, right now, specifically, we're talking about Roe v. Wade, and I believe it was in reference to...
I think you're just upset because I'm asking questions.
No, you're just posing silly hypotheticals that nobody's proposing. Nobody.
They're not questions for you. It's okay.
Hey, why are you pivoting? Why are you pivoting? So can you name who on this panel has advocated for zero?
Nobody on this panel. But what
so then why are you posing a hypothetical? What's the point of this hypothetical if no one supports
you guys are moving
if you don't want to participate in it, you don't have to participate in it. That's okay. It's fine.
Maybe it's better to ask. Preacher, where do you believe that line should be?
Okay, so
I will make the commitment to the heartbeat bill.
Okay,
but you said heartbeat bill was a compromise, right? You don't actually want that.
I said 10 to 12 weeks. 10 to 12 weeks.
I didn't say
this is a compromise. Let's say that we don't compromise.
Okay. Pause this for a moment. Pause for a moment. I do want to hear Preacher expand upon that, and then we have to go to Zurg. He's been waiting very patiently.
You guys got to
Politely.
listen for one moment. Take your ideology out of it, because I said it was a compromise. I didn't mean it was me specifically making that compromise. I'm saying the conservative right has made that compromise, whereas the liberal left will not make any compromise. That's what I would say. I didn't say me specifically. I went to Washington, D.C., and I laid my dick on the table and I said, this is what my compromise is going to be. That's not what I said. It had nothing
Zerg?
to do with me.
Nick.
Okay, there's quite a lot been said, but I think just to maybe pull it back a little bit towards Roe versus Wade and what we're talking about here. I mean, everyone's talking about compromise, but I'm English, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the decision made in the original Roe versus Wade case was a compromise between the potential future life of the fetus and the bodily autonomy of the woman. And with scientific advisors helping them, the court came to the decision that the point of viability should be where the line is, i.e. at 24 weeks. That's when they felt like the right to life of the fetus outweighed the bodily autonomy of the woman. That already is a compromise. That's, serious people making a serious, well thought out decision to point the line at that point. So you can argue back and forth about whether abortion is morally wrong or morally right. If you want my opinion, I think to try and abolish abortions completely is barbaric and honestly would set the United States back a great, great deal in the eyes of pretty much every other Western country in the world. But I've yet to hear a strong argument about specifically Roe versus Wade. Even from you, Doghouse Show, you kind of reference it a lot. Why should the line be brought back to 15 weeks? There's no argument for that. It's just, I feel like it should.
Yeah.
I believe
I'll
it
be
should
fair.
use my religion. Where's the why?
I'll be fair. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't see or have heard so far an argument as to why it should be 15. To be fair and to be completely honest, I think 24, admittedly, as I've said, is that the 15 does seem to be a bit arbitrary. I don't. As a matter of fact, Sotomayor asked this specifically to Mississippi, the Solicitor General. She asked, "What scientific changes have happened between Roe v. Wade and this new bill? Have there been any scientific advancements?" And this is where the whole idea was brought up about the fetal pain and things like that. And this is where the infamous Sotomayor thing came out about the thing. But I'm not going to get into that. The point is that I don't think I've heard anything quite that has suggested that I should move back to 15. I think 24 seems a little bit more solid. I think if you look at viability in terms of studies and stuff like that, it looks like there's a greater chance for a fetus to survive outside the womb at 24 and 22. The question, though, is obviously as medical advancements do go through, because inevitably we're going to have medical advancements, then is that viability going to get pulled back? It should get pulled back, in my opinion, based on medical, not based on some philosophical or religious perspective. It should be based on something that's actually strong and founded. It should not be based on something that's just I feel like 15 weeks this week, or I feel like 12 weeks. It should be something that's founded at least in some sort of reason besides philosophical.
Well, it's just to sort of go back on that. I think we all know the reason why the Conservatives want to move it back to 15 weeks is that's the first step in moving it further back towards 10 weeks, 5
Bingo.
weeks, and eventually 0 weeks. That's what they want. They might make out like they're just trying to get to 15, but it is arbitrary.
And I'm going to throw you a bone. I'm going to throw you a bone on this one. I'll steel man you a bit. In fact, they did, I think it was Sotomayor again. I could be wrong, but I think it was Sotomayor who actually mentioned this, saying that isn't it interesting that when this new Mississippi law came in place, that you, the state, mentioned that you all are implementing this law because there's a new conservative majority in the Supreme Court. So it is important to note that, to steel man your argument, that maybe this is a very, very well political motivated movement. And I'm not going to say that it's not, because I don't think, again, I'm willing to hear more arguments out as to why it should be lowered to 15, but so far from the first oral arguments we have heard from the Mississippi case, it doesn't seem like it makes much sense as to why it's lowering it down to 15, other than maybe fetal pain. So that's one of the things.
Okay, Kevin?
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. So I just want to kind of touch on something that Greenberg mentioned, but in general, a note to the social conservatives here is that, like it or not, here's the thing: in the long run game, you were basically kind of asking, well, where's the compromise from the liberals on this issue? There's no need and there's no moral grounds to compromise here, because as has been mentioned, Roe v. Wade is the compromise, like it or not. Because here's the thing: if you do undermine Roe v. Wade and this 15 weeks is set, I guarantee you Democrats are going to win huge in the midterms. And for potentially a decade, you'll just have Democratic presidents come in. And the thing is, it's going to basically completely undermine the GOP. People are going to be completely disgusted. You're going to eventually have the court come back around to a Democratic majority. And coupled with that, the culture war is already a futile battle for conservatives. So you can get a couple tactical wins here or there, like this case, for example, if this goes through. But in the long run, over the next 500,000, 1,500, 2,000 years, religion's gone. Everybody's liberal. Like, this is a lost cause for you guys. So if you're smart, what you would do is you would accept Roe v. Wade as the as basically the non-politicized compromise. Because when you push stuff like this, well, it can come back around and bite you, and you might have the lead for 20 years or whatnot. It's a tactical pushback, but the long run trend in the culture war is obviously going to favor us, and conservatives in 100 years are going to view Roe v. Wade as too little.
And I'm gonna steelman you a little bit again. I'm on a steelman spree. I would also argue people who think that this is going to be a conservative win. This is a big risk. People don't understand that if this doesn't get upheld, and they all dissent upon this, and they're like, no, we don't want this. That's a huge precedent, and this will be almost up to the equivalent of Casey. People have to understand that this is actually a pretty big moment to where this could easily backfire on conservatives. If they say, no, we don't agree with this 15 line, then that's going to be an uphill battle for any other conservative law or conservative case that tries to move up to the Supreme Court, especially with the young conservative majority that we have. So keep this in mind, that this isn't like some small risk. This is a huge risk on both sides. It can either go really well or really bad for conservatives, not only politically, but also judicially. Like this can fuck conservatives in any kind of abortion case moving forward if they all dissent on this and say, no, we're not going to decrease the viability line. They're going to have years before they're able to decrease it at all, if anything.
Yeah, no, massively. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but you're right. Like, theoretically speaking, if two of them just say no, it may, Coney Barrett says yes, but the other two say no. Well, then they're fucked. They're totally fucked, because now you had every circumstance. Even had Mississippi saying, yeah, we're making that play right now. And they get screwed over by the Supreme Court with a 6-3. It's GG's for the so-called pro-lifers at that point, right? Like, good luck ever. Okay. Like, for hundreds of years ever. So.
Okay, Preacher wanted to say something quick, and then I'm probably going to look at wrapping this topic up, because we've been going on this one for a while now. Preacher?
Yeah, I'm just going to be very quick. I don't want anybody to think that I think politicians, even right-wing conservative politicians, they don't give a crap about any of it. To them, it's votes. They see the abortion debate as votes. I'm not fooled by it. I don't want anybody to think I'm like, oh, this politician, he's on my... No, he's not on my side. He's on his own side. He wants his votes. He wants his pockets lined. And that's the right also. I don't want anybody to think I'm under any fantastical belief that the politicians are these great people that just are so moral and ready to just raise the Bible for everybody. No, absolutely not.
Okay, is that everybody? Wonderful. Okay, we're going to do wrap-ups then. Stardust, you raise your hand. Would you like to do it first?
Sorry, I'm always muted. Yeah, sure. Like I said earlier, there are a wide variety of reasons why banning abortion is a bad idea and why I will never compromise on this. It's just bad societally. I would ask you, what is going to be the greater impact on families in general in society when we willingly expose more children and more mothers to violence in the home? What is going to be the broader impact societally when we expose all of these families to financial hardship? I would ask, what is going to be the broader impact societally when we have all these mothers who can't bond with their children? I would again also ask you guys to take a look at Romania and they're banning abortion. Pretty bad. I guess just ponder upon whether you want to have the ability to give to have a paper abortion. So yeah.
Okay, next is going to be Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. So I managed to make basically almost every point I wanted tonight. So it's been a good discussion. And again, I want to reiterate here, I don't believe that there's, compromise for the sake of compromise. No, some things you don't compromise on. Roe v. Wade is the compromise, and anything less than that is ultimately appeasement. And as we've seen from history, appeasing reactionaries simply means that they will take more ground, and appease them again, and they'll take far more ground. So appeasement doesn't work. No appeasement, no compromise. Conservatives here on this particular issue would be lucky to accept Roe v. Wade as the long-run status quo compromise, because down the road, the decades, the centuries going forward, Roe v. Wade will look far too conservative. Thank you.
Okay, next is going to be Doghouse.
Yeah, so got a little spicy there for a minute. Kind of went like an uphill and downhill. I will admit that I didn't give too much moral prescription there, but I will say I did towards the end. And I do want to say that I think that it's very important, and we should have all established this at the very beginning, because it seems like that a lot of the conservatives were willing to give a viability line at least as to where we'll draw the line on abortion. But it doesn't seem like I heard too much from the others on the panel as to where that line should be drawn. I'm willing to say that as medical advancements continue, inevitably they will, maybe that line should be drawn down. I think that the courts have been weaponized. They've been weaponized for a while. But I think that Roe v. Wade has been grossly perverted in the way that it was originally written. A lot of people took it as a open book to abortion when that wasn't entirely the case after I dove into it. I'm not going to go into all the nitty gritty of it, but look into it. It's very interesting. They basically say that the woman and the child, unborn child, basically have essentially equal rights up to a certain point. Well, even then up till I think like the third trimester. But anyways, I digress. The point is that these conversations tend to go in circles, and this is why I was trying to kept drawing it into Roe v. Wade, because all too often we get in these conversations when it comes to abortion or Roe v. Wade or anything that comes up with a new abortion law, it always gets the same conversations, the same hypotheticals every time. And it's very important that honestly these conversations should start off with, where do you stand on the abortion line? That helps everybody work within the same framework. It helps everybody stay away from the crazy hypotheticals of a zero flat-out abortion when nobody believes that, because then you're leaving people who honestly want a maybe 24-week and less, or 24-week or more abortion ban. You're leaving them to defend a 0-week abortion ban. Where does that make sense? I'm not going to defend something that I don't even defend. It's silly. So that's why I don't believe in these hypotheticals. But anyways, again, I think there's compromise to be had. I do agree to some degree that Roe v. Wade was sort of that compromise. This Mississippi law that is going on right now could backfire huge on Republicans. We'll see how that, or conservatives. We'll see how that goes. So far, I'm leaning to be inclined that they may lower it. Again, we'll see how that affects in the coming years, but that's where I'll wrap it up for myself.
Okay, next is going to be Preacher.
Yeah, I do agree that Roe v. Wade was a compromise at the time, but we have come quite a ways medically since then, and I do believe that is why we're seeing challenges now. Excuse me. I tried to get most of my points out. I do regret that I did not get to the talking about the lifelong depression that women suffer after having abortions. Not all, but many of them do. But I stand my ground on what I believe in. Like I said, compromises have been made, but it is what it is. Nobody else wants to compromise, I guess, so we'll leave it at that.
Okay, Loner?
Yeah, I'm perfectly happy to compromise when there's like an argument made, but if the argument is just compromise, then that's not a reason. Like if someone tomorrow wanted to ban cooming because they're concerned for the massive sperm genocide, and they said, well, let's compromise and meet in the middle on abortion, I'd be like, no, that's like, we're not going to compromise just for its own sake. And that, like, I think, yeah, Preacher, you didn't say that you wanted like a total flat out ban on abortions, but you said like you're implying if conservatives do, and your compromise is the heartbeat. Well, I don't even know if I really try. Like, I know, like, they know that's a cop out. Like, they're just saying compromise with us and meet in the middle over something which, Dog, you said yourself, the 15-week is arbitrary. There's no medical justification for it. Same with the heartbeat bill. There's not really any justification for that either. It's just another arbitrary one. And I don't really know how comfortable I am compromising with the kind of people who they themselves, if that's what they're trying to do, that means that they're compromising with people who they think are killing babies. So it's like, I don't know, beta males.
James? James?
Oh, sorry, I didn't even hear you. Lot of ground covered, most of which did not involve me, blessedly. I'm sorry, we're gonna do the whole call it like it is thing. I'm sorry, I know people who say that they're pro-life rather than pro-fetus or pro-forced birth do so because, it's a virtue signal throwaway and it still provides cover. It's not an argument I buy. It's not an argument I believe. Roe V Wade, if you want to speak just legally and judicially, Roe V Wade was the compromise. And then you can just put a period on the end of that sentence and stop saying 12 more sentences after it because that's the compromise. And just because I'm an even player and I like going scorched earth on both sides of the field, this is the point of the show where I remind everybody that a little while back during Obama's first term, the Democrats had a supermajority all across the board. And if they were really that concerned with a woman's right to choose, they would have made it a law or a constitutional amendment. But rather than doing that, they used all their political capital on forcing people to buy private health insurance or else get fined and go to jail. The Democrats are no more concerned about abortion than the Republicans are. They're just concerned about it being in play as a subject that they can use as fear to bring people out to the polls. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Obama. We're going to throw it over to Nick.
All right, I'm just going to kind of reiterate what I was already saying. I've not heard any good arguments as to why the line should be brought down from 24 weeks. If an argument could be that at the point at which viability is possible with new medical advancements is earlier, then maybe you could make that argument to move it down. I would feel a lot more comfortable moving that down if the United States had some sort of socialized healthcare, so that if someone were to be more easily able to find out that they are pregnant by getting, easy pregnancy test and more free to make a decision to get an abortion at an early stage rather than having to save up money for a procedure that they can't afford, which might take them past the new point that you've drawn the line at. So yeah, introduce socialized healthcare, and then maybe I'd be a bit more comfortable bringing the line down if it's accompanied by advances in medical, viability.
Wonderful. We're going to throw it now over to Brant.
Yeah, so Roe v. Wade, I don't think it was a compromise. I think it was an established landmark case law precedent. It was not voted in by the House and then passed with the Senate and then signed. It was not a law that was amended. It is purely an example which has been established as precedent. And the compromise, which the conservatives are now coming back in Texas and having done the heartbeat bill, that was their, I guess you could call it a counteroffer in a way. You could call it a counteroffer. I think that's kind of a cop-out for what it really is just a strategy on all-out, especially if you're a classic conservative, banning abortion. But what I'm saying is that is their compromise. The compromise, let's get it correct, the compromise was not Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade was a specific case which established precedent for which now is being used as the basis to argue for either its dismissal or establishing it through compromise into a law, sliding it into the sleeve of a law. So that I personally would compromise 12 weeks, and that's federally. And I don't even like the federal government, but that would be my compromise as an individualist.
Wonderful. Now I'm going to do something different right now. It's for a friend of mine. I went on their show, Rightly, and recently they've gone through some trouble, and I want to help them out a little bit. And they have this book called How the Force Can Fix the World. He's a Star Wars nerd and also a political nerd, even though he disagrees with me. If you guys wanted to go and check it out on Amazon. Even if I disagree with him politically, I hope that, he does well. He's a really intelligent person, and I do recommend the book, even if I think Star Wars is for nerds. Now we're going to move on to the next topic, which has to do with a very light topic. a few weeks ago, there was a one of many school shootings in the United States in Oxford. And once again, there has been a conversation around what the response to this shooting should be. There have been people coming out calling for gun reform legislation, gun control, and stuff like that. There has also been others saying that this is a mental health issue, this isn't a gun control issue, and the usual talking points that we see. So I wanted to ask the room, what should the response to the tragedy in Oxford be? I'm going to start in the top left-hand corner with Brant.
All right, so there's a lot of things to get in here, so I'm going to go ahead and get through these bullet points really quickly. There were multiple failures between the family, the school, all the officials that work within the school board, everybody that had outlined this multiple times. The writing literally was on the walls. Well, he had drawn very explicit images. It'd been warned by the family. And I'm not a person that allows organizations to get away with getting away from the burden of accountability. And that being in the form of, even if me as a parent, my kid, there's signs that my kid is being super destructive and, they're saying, hey, we need to separate your kid from everyone else. My ability to say, hey, no, that's my baby. You got to let my baby go to class. That shouldn't trump the safety of all the other kids and people that are involved in, teaching our kids, putting them through horrendous things. And so the response, I would be beating the streets with signs, and I would be lobbying to get all the people that are involved in that school board either a hard look at their previous record, other things they've allowed to have happen, and who's next up to be voted out. And this is for either side, regardless. This is not even a political issue. This is a humanitarian issue here. This is an epidemic of mental health that's being basically idly allowed. A lot of our institutions are basically wanting to step back and go, oh, well, let's just blame this on the parents. Yet the parents are culpable. They did not store the gun. That's another important point. They didn't store the gun away. The kid went and retrieved the firearm, went and did it. There was multiple text messages that are basically alluding to the guilt of the parents knowing, understanding what was going on. So as far as culpability, the response, I would really like to get into the volley and talk about this because I could just literally hog this mic for the next 10 minutes on things that we could do to help prevent many more situations like this from happening. But I'm just going to save it for the volley. I'm going to say everybody involved needs a hard look at from parenting. Obviously they're locked up, so they have a lot bigger fish to fry. But there are just so many things here that are fuck ups that right or left, I think we all can agree that this was just, there's a lot of things. What route do you want to take? Where do you want to start?
Sorry, Twitch does not like the new title of the stream. We're going to throw it over now to Nick.
All right. This is a tough topic to talk about as someone who's English. All right. So I just want to start off by saying, for me, and I think for probably most people from Europe looking at this, it's obvious that if there were no legal guns in America, that this probably wouldn't be happening. That's number one. Okay. Number two, I don't think there is the possibility of that happening in the United States. So that's not what I'm saying should be done. I don't think you can get rid of the guns in the United States now that they're already there. Maybe if there was a lot of political will over a long period of time, it could be done. But I don't think there's any short-term solution to that. So to sort of echo what Brant was saying, I genuinely believe the only thing that can be done is to invest significantly more money in social services, have more, I think you call them like guidance counselors, people like that in the school that can maybe pick up on this kind of thing and have the power and authority to act on it. And secondly, more funding for mental health care for young children. Since you can't get rid of the guns, which I think is the easy solution, it's too late for that. I think it's kind of fucked on that point. I think you have to go down the direction of social services, and mental health care is kind of the only way you can stop this kind of mass tragic shooting event happening in your schools.
Next, we're going to throw it over to James.
All right, I'm gonna go kind of odd off here and say that both of the two people above, who are obviously of different ideologies, are both pretty much hit a lot of the same stuff on the same head. Like, I can't imagine there's a rational, mature, reasonable adult on this panel who isn't going to agree with A, the parents are highly culpable because they were irresponsible gun owners. B, there were multiple failures along the line, including the family, the school, and a slew of other people that'll probably come out when they throw all the background research out when they get to the trial. I mean, if you have any question as to just how horrible the parents are, please look at the fact that they literally abandoned their kid, went on the lam, and then when they got caught, hired themselves a private attorney while their kid is still in prison on $500,000 bail and is forced to use a court-appointed attorney because his parents couldn't even be bothered to get him one. Ironic, since they were more than happy to buy him a gun, they just don't want to get him an attorney to deal with it. The parents should be dealt with extremely harshly, and examples should be set, and examples should be made, because to other points above, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. There's like 250 million guns in the United States of America, so you can't just snap your fucking finger and make them go away. So, I mean, we're talking about what should happen in this specific instance, you know, what should be the fallout from this. The parents should be dealt with very harshly. An example should be made. A precedent should be set. You know, as far as what the deal is with the school and everything else, again, that's going to come out with the discovery. And on a national level, we need to do a lot more work with firearms education. I am pro gun, pro firearm, even though I'm on the left. But gun ownership should be responsible. I think it's ludicrous that we live in a country where you have to register and insure a fucking Nissan Leaf that goes 32 miles an hour up a hill, but you don't have to register or insure or be responsible for like a weapon that is solely created to kill other living beings.
Okay, next is Loner.
Yeah, I only caught up with this story just like yesterday and today. I guess my first thought was that I'm quite blessed to be living in a country where I don't have to think about this too much, you know, where we like freedom and where you get haggis and kids have the freedom to not get shot in a school. That's just a joke. I respect your Second Amendment rights. Don't worry. Yeah, I think it's like I did worry that this was going to be like a gun rights kind of issue, but then looking at just how unique this story was, with like how negligent and how like terrible the parents were, like maybe there will be more of a discussion on when the state should intervene when parents are just, you know, like basically like being that bad with their children. I don't know. So yeah, well, I just want to see where it goes.
Okay, next we're going to throw it over to Preacher.
Yeah, I totally disagree with everything that everybody has said here. I don't. I'm just saying that because James said nobody would. I do agree, and James actually brought out a very good point, and maybe conservatives will get mad at me for saying this, but I agree with the parents being arrested because I do believe it sets an example, because gun owners, on the most part, are responsible people, and when they see that this can happen, then they're going to say, you know what? I need to be extra preventative with my stuff because I'm not going to sit in jail because some dumbass, whether it's my child or somebody else's child, got my gun. So I think that's going to help in that way. I think there's a lot of people that need to be held accountable. The parents, the school. I think there's a lot of bullet points to be hitting on this, and I'm glad it hasn't gone to the typical "I want your guns, no, you can't have them" type battle that it could have, and it usually does. I'm glad it hasn't gone to that, and I definitely think there needs to be a huge, huge focus on mental health, both the child and the parents. The parents listen, those parents got some issues. Prison time is the least of it, I think, but I'll let it go at that.
Okay, next is going to be
I didn't mean
Stardust.
to get you while you're doing your hair.
No worries. Next we're going to go over to Stardust.
Yeah. So I think Brant already knows I'm going to disagree with him because we had this discussion yesterday. But I'm going to disagree with the level of responsibility we put on the school versus the level of responsibility we put on the parents. The school, yes, it was the last line of defense, but the parents were the first. The parents were the ones who, if we're going to go by conservative values, right? Who had sex and had the kid? Who's responsible for the kid? Who bought the gun? Who decided to not lock up the gun? Who decided to not have a serious talk with their child after the child was searching for ammo at school? Who decided to not take the kid out of school in contrary to the school's suggestion and who decided to not search the kid. Did the school know all of this information? No, the school did not know that, well, the counselor at least did not know that the kid had received a gun as an early Christmas gift. They only knew two things. The school knew basically that the kid was searching ammo at school and that the kid drew some disturbing images. I think yes, we should hold the school responsible, but I put the burden of the responsibility, the vast majority of it, on the parents. And I think that I'm very glad that the parents are being charged. But it's a really sad case because if we look at the history, apparently the parents would leave that kid alone a lot. The neighbors were concerned about the kid. The other classmates were concerned about the kid. And really, as soon as the parents were called to the school, they should have searched. They should have searched the kid because the school was not fully aware of everything going on. Yeah, or maybe the parents should have been aborted or something. I don't know. Bad joke. Sorry.
Kevin?
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. So I think it's obviously a very unfortunate situation. A lot of people talk about it as tragic, which it is, but it was also very preventable. And I think that the discussion should be about, how do we prevent this sort of thing going forward? And I think that one actually promising potential of this is that in this particular case, despite having really, I guess, good lawyers now, the parents are in deep water. And I believe it was the mother of Ethan Cromley. She had texted him when she found out about the ammo incident and said, "I'm not mad at you for Googling it. I'm just mad at you for getting caught," which I really hope that gets, brought up. I would like to see a very strong sentence set against both of the parents to act as a deterrent for future cases of this so that parents know that they will be held accountable. I'd like to see it actually inscribed in law to see parents get held responsible if their kids go and do school shootings, because you got to parent your kids better. You got to actually be responsible for keeping these sorts of things away from kids. Now, they buy them a gun and everything, but you should not have just ready access to ammo and all that kind of crap. I think it's a very unfortunate state of affairs because we have a decent amount of guns in Canada. I think it's the 7th highest in the world, and we don't have anywhere near the school shootings that the United States does. It's not proportionate or anything. It's not even close. And so there's a way to handle guns and be responsible about it. I'm not anti-gun, but I think you should have to have a license to do it. I think that you do need to have, you should have to go through acquisitions tests to ensure that you can actually handle a firearm responsibly. Safety, all that kind of stuff, mental competence, that sort of thing would be great. And at the end of the day here, it's the sort of thing that I just think that when people make a discussion about, well, this is the price of freedom and whatnot, it really isn't. You shouldn't have to have it as part of your high school or your college experience that you're constantly looking over your shoulder, wondering if the disgruntled kid in the back is going to start opening fire with a Glock or whatever. It's pathetic. And on this particular issue, as much as I like the United States, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom are totally blowing our American friends out of the water on this. So thank you.
Doghouse?
Well, shit. I'm going to be the conservative hot take. Thank you, Preacher. Thank you, Brant. I'm about to get fucking raked over the coals. So, this is great. All eyes are on me. So, first off, we are looking at this incident in hindsight. Hindsight, as we all know, is 20/20. It is beautiful unless you have reading glasses, and they're not. So, first and foremost, to the parents. It's very easy for people to point to the parents. I think this is a rare case that we have seen where the parents are now charged for the crimes of their child in the school shooting incident. I don't think I've ever seen this happen. The question ultimately surrounds this, and a lot of people have mentioned this, is was the gun locked up? Well, it's interesting because James said the school facts will come out in discovery. Well, we should grant the same leniency somewhat to the parents in this case. We should wait for the facts to come out in this case, because here's the interesting note. During their bond hearing, where they were setting their bond and doing their arraignment, the lawyers for the parents actually came out and said, did you know there was actually a safe and the gun was locked up in the safe, and that the prosecutor has been going around and doing these briefings. Now, granted, it's the parents' lawyer, so take it for what it's worth. These facts, as James said with the school, will come out in discovery. The other thing to mention is the ammo conversation. Well, let me provide a little bit more context to that. On November 27th, the woman, the mother, took her son out to a gun range and gave him a new gun. It was a 6R 9mm pistol. I believe that's what it was. Said, hey, this is my son's new gift. November 29th, 2 days afterwards, he was caught looking at ammo. Any kid who just got a new gun is going to look at ammo. Here's what I'm getting at with this, okay? You said search the kid. Ready access. These are two things that, honestly, again, is it only in hindsight. How many kids did I grow up with that were emo? Do they get searched every time they go to the counselor's office? Maybe. It's a valid a question that we should ask. But we had a lot of kids in the 2000s that were emo. We know during the 90s there was the grunge phase where they were listening to Marilyn Manson and everything else. So kids go through depressive phases. The question is what should we do? The other thing to answer in here is the bigger question mark is we're blaming the parents, but the school also felt that it was okay to send the kid back. Again, it's easy to sit here in the rear view mirror and go, man, they should have done this. They should have done this. Very similar to police shootings, might I mind you. And this is where I wish conservatives would take the same damn approach instead of hanging me up to dry, because now I'm going to get fucked over the coals. But fuck it. Bring it on. I just think it's really interesting. We're jumping the gun on the parents a lot. I'm not saying that what happened was justified by any stretch of the means, but I do think that the parents, we will be shocked when it comes out that maybe they did have a safe. And in fact, supposedly, the mother, after hearing that her son was doing this thing, I'm going to wrap it up here in just a second. After the parents found out that there was a school shooting, the only context we were given was that the mother texted him, don't do it. We have no context as to whether it was unprovoked. Maybe the kid texted her mom. We don't know any of these contexts. The second thing is that after the mom had texted her son, the father ran home searching for the gun, found out it was missing, and called local authorities. That seems to me like he was like, oh shit, he's got my gun. So again, it's really strange when we talk about culpability and whether or not the parents are culpable in this situation. Again, I'm going to say it like every conservative with the police shooting. Let's wait till the facts come out before I hang the parents up as an example.
Okay. We're going to start the topic. Preacher was the first to raise his hand, so I'm going to throw it to Preacher first. All right, Kevin's name down.
Yeah, I'll clarify to go off to kind of take Doghouse aside, even though I'm afraid to be next to him with all the lightning coming down. I do say, okay, so far I agree with what's happened with the parents, that they've been charged. I'm not saying they're definitely guilty. It looks bad for them from what we're seeing so far, but yes, fair trial, definitely. And if the facts come out, I'd be willing to change my mind. The only reason I disagree with, I believe it was Kevin, is making it a law. Is because a lot of times the parents do perform the tasks necessary to keep their guns secured, or sometimes the kids don't always use their parents' guns. So to make it an umbrella law, I can't see that. But this definitely, if what we're seeing about the parents right now does come out to be fact in the trial, I think it's going to set precedent, and it's going to make gun owners take that extra step for security. And I don't see that as a bad thing. Gun owners taking responsibility, saying, hey, you know what? My kid ain't getting me locked up. So I do want to say that, yeah, a fair, impartial trial should happen before we 100% say they're guilty. Now, the kid, we'll leave that alone.
Yeah, innocent until proven guilty. And that's the thing is, like, I want to be clear that making that deterrent there, it's specifically to make parents in those sort of situations take their responsibility more seriously there. And, and so that's good to see that, we got some agreement there on that. But I would say that on the point about, it was brought up about their arraignment, what I'm just amazed by about the arraignment was how they were actually given bond set, and I'm just like, wait, but they were escaping the police. They actually this makes their case look even worse. Yeah, they've got good defense lawyers and everything, expensive defense lawyers, and they'll make a good case and all that kind of stuff, but their behavior is really despicable, because when it was clear that they were on the that they were being hunted by the police, they drove 50 miles or whatever down to Detroit and hid out in a warehouse and stuff. And
did you watch the arraignment?
And
just curious.
And
I think it was only 18 miles. And honestly, in Austin, Texas, I can go 18 miles and nearly be in the same city.
Okay,
Well, and
okay.
here's
So
the
here's
thing,
the thing. So here's the thing. Just to finish on this. So so here's the thing about the parents. So the parents' behavior, in particular with the mom, saying don't do it. That to me implies that he had this sort of conversation or threatened this sort of thing in the past, and that they had a gut feeling that he was going to do some shit, and they were callous about it. So there should absolutely be a strong sentence set if they're convicted, right? Innocent until proven guilty. But the evidence that I've seen so far is absolutely damning against them. And it's not just a particular case about these parents, because there's going to be another Oxford high school, probably next year, but it could be later this month, because the US has a lot of school shootings. And the only reason why they tapered off was because of COVID, right? So
yeah,
I'm glad to see. I think fleeing could be an optic used by the state to prove
absolutely
maybe guilt. Of course,
it's an optic. It's 100%. I believe
an optic.
I believe it's an optic. That's my opinion. I think that we're seeing a case set for like a Binger level like case setting here, where like the prosecutor, I think if I'm to take a wild guess and a shot at the dark, the prosecutor is trying to get ahead of the curve and trying to drum up that excitement, so that when the jury does come, they kind of have that little inclination in the back of their head, like these parents ran, these parents did this, these parents did that. I would incline anybody to tell me what the context was to don't do it. I would incline anybody to give me the context to what happened when they fled. According to their lawyers, now again, this is their lawyers, they're hired to defend them, so take it for what it's worth. They said that they were not running. They were trying to get their finances. Now again, I'm about to provide context, get their finances in order, but that the attorney's office their attorneys called the prosecutors multiple times and said, we will bring them in on Friday on the 4th, and the prosecutor's office agreed to this. This is their defense claim. So there's two sides to a story here.
Okay, we got
they ran from the law. They ran from the law.
I'm going to say they stalled. I think my beef with them is culpability in the death of 4 people that should have never even had to deal with that situation, nor their families and everyone else that is adjacent affected. That's when they're running and all of that. I can understand situations where I think that the lawyers told them to stay in that spot, and so that the lawyers don't get like disbarred or in trouble, or basically all the money they've just paid in retainer would be now diverted to defending their own asses. I think they just came up with the story of, the defendants were, they were upset and distraught, you know what I'm saying, and they were hiding. It was like an art garage or something that they were hiding in. Yeah. But they did argue in their arraignment that they had been trying to arrange things, and that they had been ignored by the state because the state chose to put on a press conference and formally charge them rather than answer the arrangements of turning themselves in. They were already wanting to formally turn themselves in. So that my beef with them is the culpability, not necessarily fleeing. And when I looked at the stats, 18 miles, I'm from Texas, and 18 miles isn't.
It's not far.
No, it's not far at all.
So there was a warrant out for their arrest, though. So
right. No, I did. I will tell you that they were stalling. They were
stalling. You admit it.
Okay. So I want to go to the preacher, James, then Stardust.
Yeah, I'm going to say, like, when I heard it on the radio when it first came out, they were saying that the parents said, we're not running, we're going to turn ourselves in. We left the area for fear of our lives, which I can understand that. Maybe they were bullshitting. I don't know. Yeah. I guess we'll find that out in the trial. I can understand where they would have fear of their lives for what their child just did. But I do want to talk about, from everything I'm hearing, it's the kid was actually a decent kid up until like this last year. They really saw him starting to show signs. And that's where I start saying, okay, well, the parents need to recognize that. There were a lot of red flags here. The parents didn't recognize the kid having mental health issues. If you recognize that your kid is having mental health issues, I'm not going to say you shouldn't buy a gun, but damn, don't keep that gun in the house if you know your kid's having these issues.
Don't buy a gun for the kid at that point.
Right, yeah, especially don't give it to him as a gift. Say, here, Junior, I know you're having these mental issues, but here, have a weapon that you can take lives with. Doesn't make sense to me. And then the school's culpability, they should have searched the backpack. And at least recommended, I'm not going to say forced, but at least recommend, listen, your child needs psychological help. Why they didn't do that is beyond me.
Metal detectors. I mean, this is fucking easy.
They did actually. They did.
Oh, the school did do that?
They ordered them to get him treatment within 48 hours.
Psychiatric part.
Yeah. James,
I'm speaking on behalf of Objective. Like a metal detector that can pronounce at least 95% of those things. Maybe 1 out of 20 items makes it through, but metal detectors will be a very large bottom feeder as far as getting rid of a lot of pocket knives and small metal objects. And you at least have to check through as you come through with turning in your items, and then you'll get them, as you walk through. So if you have something that's metal, it's not like you're going to not be able to come into school. I think we're talking about responses, things that we can do that can have a tangible effect. We're never going to get to a zero sum. Where evil wants to thrive and do its thing, it's going to happen. And what we can do is set things in motion that can be preventative, and that's one of them.
James?
So I got a few points. At Doghouse, I'm gonna hit you on this, but it's cool.
I know it's all right. I got
Hey,
no
man,
offense.
we have legit conversation, so it's good. I know
We're
you're okay with Eat on this.
Sorry.
You cannot say that you have securely locked a firearm if a 15-year-old who is not a master burglar and does not own lockpicks has easy access to it. It quite literally defies the meaning of the word secure. So in no way, shape, or form did the parents secure the firearm, because if the firearm was secured, there wouldn't be a bunch of dead bodies outside of a school.
Bingo.
Can I say something else?
Can I respond real fast?
Yeah. Let me go right after you.
Yeah. The question about this being secured, we don't know how he got into that safe, and it will come out in the facts and discovery of how he got in the safe. For example, we could think of things like the gun safe. Look up the arraignment hearing. They talk about the gun safe.
Defense lawyers that are bullshitting.
Okay, I'll take a look.
Right.
Okay, well,
okay. I learned this is fact because this is all reported. This is all defense lawyers posturing.
Yes. Well, okay, wait.
Okay. Stop. Okay.
The thing is just as much as the defense lawyers are going to sit there, the prosecutors also have a very much interest in this as well. So.
Okay. Dog's muted because he didn't listen to me. Okay. We're gonna go back to the list then. Next is gonna be Star.
Right. Look, whether the parents had it locked or not, and from every source that I'm trying to find here, it says unlocked. I could be wrong, but regardless of that, it's your responsibility to secure that gun. And if you didn't secure it enough and your kid got into it, then that's your fucking fault. You bought the gun. You had sex and made that kid. You decided to raise that fucking kid. So yeah, it's your fucking fault. I'm sorry. I'm not pro turning our schools into fucking prison systems because we can't hold parents responsible. What happened to personal responsibility? I thought this was like a conservative value that we had. I thought that was a thing that we always held people to. And then I guess on top of that, like I haven't brought up anything about like gun policies or anything like that. I don't think that's anything that we can change. But again, the onus of the responsibility falls on the parents and then secondarily on the school. There are 4 children who are dead. That is 4 families who have lost a child before their time because of the negligence of these 2 parents. So I'm sorry. Yeah, they're fucking responsible.
Well, I'm glad that you feel that legally they should be held responsible. I personally, right now, based on the facts, it is way too soon for me to presume any kind of guilt or innocence, at least on involuntary manslaughter. Morally, if you want to talk about morals, I think there are maybe some signs that maybe the parents obviously didn't pick up on. I think it's obviously quite clear.
Maybe?
Well, okay, they have, but that's the thing. That's fine. And so that's the thing, right? Is like when we look at these things, it's easy for us to look in hindsight with the parents. at the end of the day, the ultimate responsible one is going to end up being the person who pulled the trigger, which is him. He's obviously going to probably end up facing serious, if not, I don't know if they're going to charge him an adult. I haven't heard anything about him. His is pretty shut and closed. He's screwed unless he tries to go mental and all that. But in terms of the parents, in terms of the legal side of things, there's a whole lot of questions here and not a lot of answers other than what we're getting from the prosecutor. And you are right. The defense absolutely are looking out for the best interest of their client. That makes 100% sense. But so is the prosecutor. They're representing the state, trying to make sure that they make an example of these parents. And they're going to try to throw out whatever they can to make it try to seem like it's one way or the other. For example, the don't do it text. Nowhere have I been able to find out the context of this because there's so many things that could happen. What if the alert went out and then the parents just unprovoked said, don't do it? What if Ethan Crumbly, or I think this is his name, texted his mom, was like, hey mom, I'm doing this, this, and this. And she's like, oh shit, son, don't do that. Two totally different things, right? And implies two totally different things. So, and then in terms of gun laws, yeah, no. Look at the assault weapons ban of 2019, 2020, and I think 2018, I don't know, that was trying to be passed. All gun weapon bans are going to be retroactive, or you know what I mean? They're going to be where basically.
I'm not pro gun ban. I'm not pro gun ban at all. I'm
no,
pro
I know.
guns.
So
Okay,
I just wanted to ask him some questions, but he's running away.
Okay.
I'm here. No, I'm here. I'm not
I
running
just
away. That was
wanted
the
to say
doggo.
one thing. Can I just make
Doggo's
one
barking.
point of clarity really quick? That Michigan, I don't think has a statute that makes somebody liable for storing your gun. I think you can literally have your gun like out on the counter. Now, as someone who usually is about way less government, I'm a person who would be like marching in the streets for there to be legislation passed where parents are on the books by definition liable specifically in those types of cases where that happens, where there because what happens is because now that they have not had a law that protects them that says, oh, if you just would have had it secured, then you're released from liability. Now ipso facto law says that they are culpable because there was no law that gives them an out as much as it gives them culpability. So that's a point of clarity, is that Michigan doesn't have a law on the books. There's no way they can really, I think, come after the parents when in regards to not having it secured. I think they're directly just going after them for involuntary because that's the best statute that they can go for. That's the best thing that they can.
much.
That's equivalent. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really personally into the idea of like, we're not expecting anyone to make like a very firm legal statement like 5 days into afterwards just happened, but like maybe just to like get some like actual thoughts out of people, we could say like, well, assuming what we know about the parents is true, like I don't know, Doghouse Show or Brantford was like, or even Preacher, like what do you guys actually think? So if it were true, where would you morally hold the whole like don't get caught when he was looking for rounds or ignoring the mental health issues? And
that to me is evidence
of
of negligence and a contribution to homicide, essentially, to me.
what about in general
willing
buying the gun
negligence.
for him?
Willing negligence.
Is anyone
won't
here
go
in
as
favor
far-
of him? Hey, is anyone here in favor, like, or it's okay with the fact that they bought a gun for a Christmas present?
No,
for a 15-year-old?
I already said.
I have
like,
no problem with that.
Now,
gun
normally,
culture,
I wouldn't be okay
I'm
with
not really-
him having a gun bought for him if it was that. But if he had no psychiatric problems, troubles at home, like we talked about the last year, he was a good kid up until a year ago, and the fact that they're buying him a gun at the tail end of this year-long period of basically a descent into needing rehabilitation rather than coddlation, and it's just one of those things where I don't know.
Listen,
like I said,
I've seen people like, and it looks like Brant, you're from Texas because you're representing Houston. Astros, not the Houston Texans, so I definitely know you're from the area because you would not be wearing a Texans hat. But anyways, I digress.
No, I'm embarrassed. Yes.
I digress. So the what I would say is when it comes to the, like, I've seen if you're in Texas, that there are people not supposed to who have their kids that are like 5-6 years old that are driving trucks out on their parents' property. If you're also out in the country in the rural areas of Texas, you'll see kids shooting guns as early as 13, 14 years old. Now, we can argue whether or not they should or shouldn't be. Personally, you can make an argument that them growing up with it, they have some safety with that. The question here is that, again, hindsight is 2020. what are we going to do about the parents who obviously didn't see the signs or saw the signs, and which are two totally different things? If they saw the signs, if they saw the signs and ended up giving their son a gun, that is wholly irresponsible. But if they didn't see the signs at the time, do I hold them
Still
morally responsible? I don't know if I would hold them morally irresponsible. Personally.
Wait, just a quick.
Yeah, wait. I'm giving the hand over to Nick because Nick has been waiting.
Thank you.
I have Star and James written down.
Just to point on when you said Doghouse Show, maybe it wasn't you before, but didn't someone say that when the father heard there was an active shooter in the school, he immediately ran back to his house to check if his gun was missing?
We don't know the communication between the mom and the dad and everything else, but the story goes that as soon as their alert went out, the mom texted Ethan, "Don't do it." That no context given. This is what the prosecutor said. Don't do it. And then at the same time, the dad then ran home to go check his gun safe. We don't have any context between alert, don't do it, and dad running home.
I guess my question would be though, why would he think to go and check that if he didn't think there was?
We don't know because we don't know the context.
That his son was capable of doing that.
Yeah, that's just the defense trying to make.
But remember how we've already alluded that we can't. With Michigan law, the way he's being tried right now, or they will be eventually tried as, that there is no definition for having it secured or not having it secured. The parents actually could have just literally had the gun sitting on top of the fridge.
Sorry,
or on top of the
that's not what I mean. I mean the point that he suspected that his son was capable of that.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know. This again, no context. There's no context as to why he ran home, other than he ran home. There's a big difference. Context would be maybe the mom sent him a message saying, "Oh my God, I just texted Ethan, don't do it. He might be shooting up the school." Versus like the dad, like you said, just like, "Oh, I heard that there was a school shooting. It must be my son. Let me run home." Those are two different things. This is why I said context is important.
Well,
those things will be submitted as evidence.
It implies
Okay.
that there was previous, that there might have been a previous discussion.
No. Okay. There was multiple people talking at once, so I want to give an order to it. I'm gonna have Kevin, then I'm gonna go to Star, and then I think James. We're gonna go in that order. Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Dylan. So basically, with this whole situation, the "don't do it" thing implies to me, at least, based on how I see it, that they knew that something was up with him over the last year, and they're like, don't do it. They knew that there was a chance that this was going to happen. They were callous about it. Obviously, the defense attorneys, they're good defense attorneys. They're going to make as good a character case and so as much plausible deniability as they can, because that's their literal job. And you can say that the prosecutor is going to try to make an example of them. 100% base. They should be made an example of. They should get a disproportionately large sentence so that we set precedent. I got a question.
Why are you talking about?
I got a question for the more gun cultist type people here and everything. Wait,
let me ask.
Wait, no, dog. You gotta let him ask the question first. Okay.
I got a question for you. I got a question for basically everybody on the panel, but it's more the people that are more coming around on the more pro-gun side of this. Canada has about 25% the per capita gun ownership in the U.S. It's the 7th highest in the world, but we don't have 25% of the school shootings. Not even close. It's a very rare thing when it happens here. So my question is, would the more, I guess, conservative people on guns at least be willing to adopt laws in the United States that move towards a more Canadian understanding of this, of you've got to prove that you know what you're doing, it's got to be safety, you've got to have the ammo and the gun separate, all that type of stuff, secure everything, whatnot, limitations on certain, like automatic, even semi-automatic firearms, that sort of thing. Would you like to see moving towards that direction? I'm not saying getting there, but over, say, the next 100 years, moving in that direction? Or would you basically have the attitude of school shootings are the price of freedom? Because I wouldn't want to pay that price.
I'm all for moving towards safety, but I'm going to throw a question back towards you. Would you say that there is a difference between a mother unprovoked seeing the school texting "don't do it" versus Ethan saying, "Hey mom, I'm about to shoot up the school" in a video?
No. Here's the thing. I'll answer you. If I'm the mom in that situation and I'm texting Ethan and I don't know that any shady shit's going down, I'm going to say, "Holy shit, get the fuck out of there. There's a school shooting." I'm not going to be don't do
You
it.
didn't answer
That
my
implies
question.
you
You're
know
pivoting.
that your
You're
son
pivoting.
is the fucking
Answer my question. You're
perpetrator, dude.
pivoting.
Well,
You're
you
pivoting.
pivoted
Answer
on
my
my
question.
question. I asked you a direct question first.
I did. I answered it. I answered it. I said I'm all for moving towards safety. So now answer my question, which is if the mother sat there and texted him unprovoked saying don't do it versus Ethan saying, Mom, I'm about to shoot up the school in a video game, do you believe that these two are completely different?
Well, if the son texts her that he's about to do this shit and she says don't do it, her next course of action should be to call the police immediately. I wasn't aware that happened. I wasn't aware that the Crumleys called the cops. So it's very good to run with the defense attorneys here and everything, but understand their job is to sow as much plausible deniability as possible. And
the prosecutor's job
the
as well.
prosecutor's correct on
And
that.
innocent until proven guilty.
Prosecutor's correct in
proving
this.
Okay,
the
wait.
narrative.
Okay. So next is Star. So I want to throw it over to Star next.
Okay, so if we look at the facts surrounding this, or at least what has been reported, it says after the second meeting, Crumley allegedly committed the shooting at 12:50 p.m. Prosecutors further alleged that 1:22, 7 minutes after the first news reports came in of a shooting at the school, Jennifer Crumley texted her son saying, Ethan, don't do it. At 1:37, James Crumley called 911 to report a Sig Sauer, I guess their handgun, as missing, and also said that Ethan could be the gunman at Oxford High. So I don't have the context. You're right. There is no context for her saying don't do it. But it seems a little sus to me that 7 minutes after there's a report of a shooting at the school that she's saying don't do it, and the father is calling the police. Another thing here is somebody brought up that they weren't fleeing. It says here, at around 11:05 p.m. on December 3rd, police received a tip from a business owner who found Crumley's vehicle in his parking lot about 40 miles from Oxford. The man also said he saw Jennifer Crumley, who fled upon being spotted. Police responded to the scene about 20 minutes later and established a perimeter in the area. At around 2:00 a.m. on December 4th, police took the couple into custody after finding them in a first-floor room. They said that the Crumleys were unarmed and very distressed during the arrest, but there was no indication that they planned to surrender. I don't know. You can say that the prosecutors have their own motive in this, but I would say, what is their motive? 4 children are dead. I'm sorry. There are 4 children that are
The
dead.
prosecutor's motive is to fucking hang them high. Are you shitting me?
Yes, and they
Come
should be.
on.
And they should
I wish
be.
they had the death
And they
penalty.
Okay. Wait. Stop.
You are saying
Okay, all 3 of you have been muted. Okay, we're not gonna just let this devolve into yelling. So I'm gonna go next on the list here, and that is James.
Oh my
What's
God.
up, Dylan? Fellow greetings. Again, there's a lot of like dancing around, or well, there's no context for this, and I don't know about the the narrative around this. Straight up, you bought a 15-year-old gun. He killed people. You have to be 18 years old, purchase a firearm in the United States of America. If somebody else purchased it for you, well then they're the person who purchased a gun and got it to a child. Oh, that's right. It was locked away securely in a place where obviously a fucking 15-year-old could cop it in under a minute. That's like how my mom's weed was secure, rolled up in a sock in her underwear drawer. That's not fucking secure, okay? Dude, the kid smoked 4 other kids. The parents ignored
And that's terrible,
the
and it shouldn't have happened.
signs. Yeah, well, guess what? Oh, well, it's tragedy. It should have happened. Yeah, guess what? You got to make an example of people. Final point, real quick. Final point, real quick. When everybody drops the ball, people die. 2 days after this at Embry-Riddle University, somebody was literally on their way to campus with more than 6,000 rounds of ammo and 14 firearms. And the cops were outside waiting for him. You know why? Because it wasn't a complete total lack of failure everywhere around this person and in this person's life, unlike the litany of failures that occurred with this kid, even though he posted videos online and he posted fucking video vlogs about his visions of dancing in blood. And yeah, those happened, dog, because multiple people confirmed that they happened. And obviously, not one person gave enough of a shit to call the fucking police beforehand. And oh no, all the calls to the police only rolled in after the bodies started stacking up on the ground, getting cold. Sorry, this is a total fucking failure by everybody, but most of which by the parents.
Preacher.
And you know what?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Do I have a way to respond
Brant,
to this? Just like for 2 seconds. Like 2 seconds.
Okay.
Just real quick. I've literally got like
I
a
didn't
second.
even get
Okay,
to
I will
finish,
count.
to be honest, but
Yeah, I am gonna bring it back over to you, Star. You're an after
I
preacher.
agree it's a
but-
failure.
but-
That's all I want to say. I agree it's a failure.
That was 2 seconds. I just want to harken back to
I'll write your name down, Brant.
question, because I never did get the opportunity to respond to that, and it's going to be similar to what Brant had said. I'm going to use my kids as an example, not because they're my kids and they're good kids, but if when they were 15 they wanted a handgun, I would purchase that handgun, and we could say it's theirs. Technically, it's mine. It's in my name. The only time you're going to use it is when we go out to shoot together. Again, it's not because they're my kids, but my kids don't have that history. So, for the most part, yeah, I don't see that as abnormal. But when you do have a child who has been showing this history of some kind of mental illness going on, again, I'm not going to say don't buy the gun. I am going to say if you buy the gun, don't buy it for him. Don't take him to the range, and definitely don't have that gun in the house. So I as much as Stardust likes to beat up on me because she's just very mean, I do stand with her on this. The parents take culpability over the school being very secondary.
Stardust, you can finish your question.
yeah, I do think, as I was saying before, yes, the prosecutors have their angle, but again, I don't think that it is out of the ordinary when, again, 4 families are affected by this because their children are dead, that the prosecution is going to have their spin on it. I'm sorry, I don't have any fucking sympathy for the parents. I really don't. This is something that should have been taken care of. Even if they locked it up and he got access to it, they clearly didn't lock it up well enough. And there needs to be responsibility. He's 15.
Okay. Next, it is Loner. Then there's Brant, Dog, and Kevin. Loner and Brant.
Yeah,
I mean,
Doghouse,
Nick, are you raising your hand? I can't tell.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
I guess
all right.
I'd say.
Dope.
Yeah, Doghouse, I feel like your argument kind of fails either way because, like, first of all, okay, the don't do it text. Okay, that could be in context. Maybe they just cropped out the bit where he says, I'm going to kill some people in a school. But, like, I mean, the phone records were given to the press, and that extra information so far hasn't made it. The prosecutor has used don't do it, but you know who else has spoken to the press since then? The parents' lawyers, and they haven't responded to the don't do it thing. So I think it's just a little bit suspicious that you're kind of clinging on to this thing that is just so unlikely that like they would actually manage to get away. Even after the parents' lawyers have spoken, they'd get away with publishing don't do it out of context that would exonerate them like on the spot. If you're right though, if you're right that there is context behind the don't do it, and the parents generally didn't know, then well legally that's the very important difference, morally as well, between negligence and ignorance. So ignorance is you don't know, you're a bit stupid or whatever. Negligence is you didn't know, and it's your fault that you didn't know. Because there was a clear pattern of mental health issues with this kid. If the parents didn't know that and bought him a gun and encouraged his fucking addiction and obsession with guns, then that's negligence, and that is morally like and probably maybe legally, but yeah, basically like very reprehensible and doesn't deserve sympathy, because then that just means they basically bought a gun and encouraged the gun fucking obsession with this kid, like without knowing his mental state, which is arguably worse. Like that's so it's not fucking it's a fucking gun. It's a human slayer. Like what the fuck?
Dylan, may I respond after Leonard?
Equalizer.
Sure, but then we got to go to Brant.
Okay. All right. So first and foremost, let me just set a baseline of where I'm at. Okay. First of all, if the parents gave the gun to the kid knowing and full well knowing that their kid had mental health issues, which it seems like Preacher made the example that there could have been some mental health issues, totally wrong, the parents. And in that case, I would say that giving them a gun was completely irresponsible and even possibly holds up to involuntary manslaughter. Depends on the facts of the case. The other instance of the don't do it thing, it's very possible that what I'm saying, there is no context. Maybe there is nothing that was said. Maybe another good example is maybe that the kid ended up going to a counselor's office, right? And they just had a call with the counselor's office about these drawings that their son did. And then they get a call like 4 hours later saying, hey, there's someone shooting up the school. You're probably like, oh shit, is that my son? Right? Who I just had a conference with? That's a very good possibility. And in that case, do I think that it shows that they knew prior to that day? I don't know if that does. I don't know without context. I'd have to read more into this. I want more facts to come out because maybe the parents are guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Maybe now morally, I think the parents definitely had a failure of communication with their son. I definitely think the parents have a failure in some aspect to this. They do hold some responsibility morally for what had happened because it was their fault for failing their son to know what their son was going through in this darkest place. So I'm not trying to just wave the parents, say, oh, the parents are innocent. They should just be happy rolling through flowers. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want anybody to construe it that way. What I'm saying when it comes to legal, I'm very, very specific when it comes to legal. Morally, I'm a lot more loose. I don't care. The parents, if they knew that their son had mental health problems, do not give that kid to a fucking gun. But if they didn't know, and they were just irresponsible parents and not involved in their kid's life, I don't know if I can morally hold the parents the same standard as saying that they were stupid in that sense. I don't know how to explain it.
How do you
There's a
respond
reason
to
why
the
they
negligence
didn't know.
claim then? Yeah, the fact.
There's
Yeah,
a reason why they didn't know.
Well, I mean,
There's a
if they-
reason why the reason why they didn't know is because the parents would leave him alone at his house by himself for really long periods of time. They would be out at the bar drinking. The neighbors had called, I believe, CPS and expressed that they were concerned about the kid. So yeah, they didn't know, but they're still responsible because they were fucking negligent. I'm sorry, they were so negligent.
Well, I would. What I wanted to get in here was basically that.
Wait. Brant has been waiting. Loner, your name is written down. Don't worry, Brant.
Yeah. Just really quickly. We were talking about like solutions. What's a response that could happen? Something outside of the prosecutorial side and the reconciliation side. We're talking about legislation. One thing they could do is start adding sub-statutes that allow people to either be more accurately and articulately sentenced or charged, I guess, and then convicted. Because let's throw a scenario out here where the parents did put away this thing and this kid's like, going in there Mission Impossible and hacks the safe and steals it. If there's a sub-statute that says, hey, because you had it put away, we have proof that you had, here's your system, maybe a combined admitting by the person, the child saying, hey, I broke into it, that would then disabuse them of that particular responsibility. But because of that, because of Michigan law, I would say Michigan law is antiquated, and that the real response to this would be fixing the law, amending it, adding sub-statutes that add more clarity and articulate these situations so that you have a more well-informed constituency, people that know what's going on. When you have a culture that says that I can just take my Glock out, put it on the fucking table and sit it around, it breeds a culture of people that think I can just be irresponsible and leave it out, put it in a shoebox or, hide it in a very inefficient way. When you have laws that say, look, you need to be exercising, putting away your gun, effectively, then you start minimizing incidences like what we see here. You're never going to get to a zero sum, but you start minimizing those instances. So I think a really good way to fix this would to be more cleverly articulating those sub-statutes.
Okay. Next is going to be, there's Kevin, Zerg, and Loner, and I'll write your name down, James. Kevin?
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. So I just want to say, screw the particulars on this case because, they're very bad. They're horrible, but there are going to be more school shootings. And I want to credit Fluff, one of your moderators, Dylan, in the chat for linking me a source that There have been 31 high school shootings in the United States in 2021. Now, the vast majority of those happened between August and December. That's insane. That's like that's over 20 in a 4-month period. That's ridiculous.
There's summer break.
Hold on.
32.
So just to be clear. So I want to be very straightforward about something. For all of the victims, the direct victims, what we need to remember as well is the mass anxiety that's induced as a result of this culture where we just allow this to happen, then we discuss how awful it was, and then we kind of move on. There actually needs to be a systemic reform towards actual gun safety and background checks and all this stuff. And I really do feel that people like Doghouse, I don't think Doghouse is like some big fan of the parents or anything. The reason why I think that conservatives generally on this issue go so much to bat for people that they regard are bad, evil people, generally speaking, isn't that they're big fans of them. It's that they're worried that if they get their due punishment, that their gun rights or freedoms or whatever are ultimately at stake. And guess what? Your gun freedoms are ultimately overrated as they stand right now. They need to be regulated. There needs to be a process through which you basically have to prove that you're mentally competent to acquire a firearm, that you know how to use it, and you know safety and that kind of stuff. And that doesn't exist right now. And in order to get there, we need to move towards a culture of reform. And so in order to hold back that tidal wave of people that are upset about it, what's the first line of defense? The first line of defense is you'll see pro-guns people defending heinous acts, not necessarily defending it, but going with the plausible deniability, not because they're fans of it, but because they're so scared that Democrats are going to come for their guns. And honestly, it's pathetic. It's sad. And
I don't think anybody here.
People don't want to live with that anxiety, right? Like I went to university in Canada, and I had anxiety that there was one I word that I can't say. I was gonna shoot people, right? And
here's the problem. You're saying that like I'm concerned. No, I'm concerned about the due process, unlike red flag laws, okay? I'm worried about due process, that people who commit crime should all be held to the same standard of the law, that they should go through the same process. I would believe that we would all believe in the criminal justice system being fair and impartial. I would think that that's a pretty key core standard. And so when I'm going to sit here and give a moral prescription to the parents, yes, they are a failure of parents because they allowed this to fucking happen to a certain degree because they failed their child. However, when it comes to the legal side of things, I want it to be very precise because I do believe in the due process of the law. So there's two different sides here. I could condemn the parents at the same time say that they are due a rightful trial. These are two different things. Good example.
Never said they were.
Okay, but you said that I was worried about gun culture. I'm not worried about gun culture. I'm worried about the due process of law.
By the way, wait,
that's what I'm worried about.
Dog. Speaking very close to the mic has an effect. Okay,
Sorry.
you be very careful about that. Thank you.
It's the Haas House show.
Yeah, it's Haas mode. It's Haas mode, gorilla mode.
It's
Well,
Haas House
to do
show.
Haas mode, you'd have to point the mic like this,
Yes,
like the
I
wrong
am
way.
winning.
You have to do
I
it.
am
You have to hold your
dominating.
mic really incorrectly.
Okay, so I want to bring it to the next person, which is Zerg.
Yeah, so I was going to say a lot of what Kevin just said, which I think was eminently sensible, but I'm going to be a little bit less charitable to Doghouse. Sorry. I think that the reason that you're defending the parents isn't necessarily because you're scared of admitting that they're culpable and therefore that might infringe on your rights. I think if we take a step back from this discussion, we've spent the last, 45 minutes to an hour discussing the particulars of this case and whether the parents are guilty, whether they're negligent or not. When you yourself said, we don't have all the facts. It's going to be go to a trial. The facts are going to come out. Smart people and all of us are going to discuss it. The reason why this is where the discussion is being pointed by all of the right-wing or pro-gun folks, I would say, is because the more we discuss the particulars of this case, the less we have to talk about the systems and the way things are set up that allowed it to happen in the first place. You don't want to have a discussion about the wider problems in the system and in the society. If we can just focus on this one particular case, then we never actually have to talk about introducing gun legislation or even just making any changes at all that might make this less likely to happen in the future.
I'm for gun legislation, FYI. So anybody that isn't aware, I'm for gun legislation. If we're working to try to fix these, absolutely. Let's do some gun legislation. Mental health checks, maybe. I don't know what the law would look like in that sense, but sure, let's do mental health checks if that's what it takes. I'm for gun reform to some degree. I'm not a Second Amendment absolutist. And when it comes to why I care about the fact of the law, I have cared about the fact of the law in the Breonna Taylor case, the Ahmaud Arbery case, the George Floyd case. I've cared about the facts of all of these different cases, and anybody who has interacted with me knows that when it comes to legal stuff, I usually try to say, hey, look, morally, this is fucked up. But legally, I need to look at this on a case-by-case basis. Kyle Rittenhouse, another one. Preacher has interacted with me multiple times where I think we've had this conversation before. We've had this conversation. What we've talked about Breonna Taylor and all these other cases, I'm very particular when it comes to cases. But when it comes to morally, I try to separate these two. I don't try to intertwine these because when you intertwine these, you jump to conclusions very easily. I don't want to say just because something's morally wrong that it should be legally wrong. I think these two can be completely separated. All right. So that's why being very particular in this case, and I want to make sure that's abundantly clear. The parents are a failure. Gun legislation's based. I don't give a fuck. I want to see due process for everyone. I don't care how severe the crime is. I want it to be impartial and you be treated equally under the law. That's all I want. Morally,
Maybe
I
I'm-
can interject.
Okay, wait.
The only
Sorry,
reason.
Okay.
Okay, well, no, I'll let Zerg finish.
It's just one question. I mean, if that's what you think, do you have any reason to doubt that there is going to be a full investigation into this? Like, why are we so heat up talking about it? Surely they will be. The people will be held accountable, right? Yeah. So
if the facts on this case show, I am not afraid to shift my position in saying that these two should be completely wrong based on the facts of the case. If this case comes out to prove that the parents knew full well and that that kid had access to, say, the gun safe code or whatever it may have been for whatever reason, depending on the facts of this case, if they fit the legal definition of involuntary manslaughter, lock them up, hang them high, hang them to dry. I don't care. That's
does
fine.
anyone disagree with that?
Well, Doghouse. The reason why we're
No,
talking about it is because we were
Stardust was going to follow. One second.
About it.
Stardust was going to follow up after that, and then we
Yeah,
got to go back to this list.
Wait, we were on a panel to talk about it?
Stardust.
So I only brought up putting the majority of the responsibility on the parents because Brent and I had a discussion yesterday where we were arguing about who is more responsible for what happened, the school or the parents. And I was purely, obviously, everybody deserves the right to a fair trial. But if we're just looking like from this perspective, in my personal opinion, obviously, I think what I think. And what I think is that the parents are far more responsible than the school. So,
Yeah.
Are you talking about legal?
I agree that
legally or morally.
even though I would be litigating versus all of them, I would at the hierarchy, I would put obviously the shooter
maybe,
and
I
then
don't
the
know.
parents and then the state, or local officials or whatever, public school in this particular instance.
Loner?
Hey?
Loner, you raised your
Oh, was
hand
I on the
earlier.
list?
Yes, you were.
Oh yeah, that was ages ago. What the fuck was I going to say? Yeah, I
Been a
mean,
good
I
discussion,
don't
though.
think I don't think I have any issue with what you're saying about the legal moral thing. The only thing I found weird poking at was that you just seem to be like very kind of gray about the whole like how do we know they don't do it was actually a response to him expressing intent to shoot up the school when they've had quite a lot of opportunities to set that clear because that would make such a massive difference. I just found it kind of weird. I don't know. I wonder what but even then, like I don't really want to make legal claims. It's not that interesting to me. But the whole idea of just like we know that regardless of what they knew about his mental health, or regardless of how much they could have known, even they were very, very encouraging of the kind of like gun obsession of this like 15-year-old. And I just find it kind of weird. Like obviously we haven't had guns in Scotland since like 1995, 96. So not very familiar with it. And typically, if you're like a young sort of alienated sad boy at school at the age of 15 here, then if you want to solve that, you have to like either get smart or get jacked or like learn to play the piano or some bullshit. You can't just pick up a gun and think you're all that. Like you can
Or
buy
just
swords.
have parents.
You can buy swords and
Have
shit. but
parents
that's
that
like,
are there that go, "Hey, look, that's a dumb decision. Why don't
just
I
have
sit here
parents
and
5
mentor
head.
you?"
Yeah. Just have parents 5 head. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
Well,
I
I'm
don't
just,
have
well, I'm
much
just
res-
saying,
Oh,
or
yeah,
parental,
responsibility the
whoever those
kids has
figures
over-
are.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the child here. I'm not. You can't tell the child to get better parents. Okay.
No.
Technically, the gun was the parents. If we're being honest,
okay.
technically, even though if you want to go by like the technical, like, you know, very nitpicky letter, you could say that the gun was for the parents, but even though the parents did let their son use the gun, and that's why they probably had it locked up in their case. It was like, hey, you can't obviously possess this weapon, even though he did. He can't legally possess this weapon, and it depends on the state law, because state law differs from place to place. Nonetheless, the point is that. Anyways, all right, I'll let you continue.
It's a handgun. It's a handgun. He can't
exactly.
Right.
With a handgun, you can't own a handgun until you're 18 because you can conceal it. With a rifle in some states, just like in the Rittenhouse case, right? There was one of those sub-statutes that we were talking about that ended up basically saving Kyle Rittenhouse's life. The fact that he was allowed to legally have a rifle on his persons if he was above the age of 16, even though he couldn't be a minor in possession of a deadly weapon. When that sub-statute came in, it, made it legal for him to be able to hold that. And if that wouldn't have been proven, then he would have been instructed for provocation, and he would have been culpable with all of the individuals that he ended up shooting.
Yeah, that's not really exactly the point. It was more just talking about, like, there is like a very broad, like very, very acute cultural difference between like United States of America and like everywhere else in the world, and that like this kind of like
even
fetishization
within the country, it's like that.
Please, let me finish. I'm a bit tired for it. But yeah, I was just trying to say that the thing with like that kind of like fetishization of like weapons, and especially like deadly weapons, I just think is a kind of broader cultural issue that, especially in a society where, young guys, they get emasculated, they fetishize power. I think just having the option of being able to shoot people is just such a, like, of course you're going to get shootings. Like, I think there's maybe like a broader cultural issue that you guys maybe need to treat your guns a little bit differently from the kind of like penis extensions that they seem to be right now.
Well, I mean, there's always going to be artificial penis extensions that exist out there metaphorically. Whether it's a Miata with
blades, right?
Well, I mean, to be fair, like the slang for guns is dicks, right? That's where dicks out for Harambe came from, right? So, I mean, like, yeah, maybe there is something there. I don't know.
Okay,
next,
also,
you
if you
can
want
turn
to say
a car
that, like,
into a deadly weapon. You can turn a knife into a deadly weapon.
Yeah. Okay. So
I say we can
wait. Okay.
Nerf guns and video games with guns in
Okay.
it. That's a good idea.
We're gonna have Lona finish this, then we have to go to. Wait.
Obviously, guns have way more lethality. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not even just the lethality. It's also just like the kind of person it takes to use a knife compared to using a gun. Elliot Rodger, I'm sorry. If you give him a knife, he's gonna fucking fall over and like, stab himself by mistake. Like he wasn't going to do anything with a fucking knife. If you ever look at like the people who, if you ever look at the news and see the kind of people who get done for knife crimes in the UK, they do not look like Elliot. You are completely, if you get rid of like guns, at least for youths, right? You are completely eliminating an entire category of killing. We don't get school stabbings.
Okay, so
right? Like,
now that he's
a knife than it is.
Okay.
It's not even just the strength to be able to.
He said okay. I'm just gonna. Okay.
So more of a
stop.
guns.
Okay. So now half the panel's muted. So we're gonna throw it over to James now, who's been waiting extremely patiently.
What?
Yes, your name is here.
Oh, sorry. I'm lost in time. Yeah. So since the overarching theme of tonight seems to be personal responsibility, I'm going to, unfortunately, have to, for the third time, remind everybody, and I believe Brent made the point, because it is a handgun, you not only have to be 18 years old to literally possess it, you have to be 18 years old to buy it. Yes. Ergo, there is no way the parents could have legally transferred the gun that they purchased for their child to their child. So if you want to talk about liability and all the other stuff, that gun belonged to two people who did not store their gun safely enough to keep somebody from stealing it and then executing other human beings with it. Thus, they are liable. There's no debate about who called who and what they meant by a text message. Like, personal responsibility, people. We got to get with it, okay? As far as the larger gun culture in America problem, and I know it's what Motorbox was getting at, it's more than a valid point. I'm going to throw it out there that even as somebody who's on the left, I fully admit and have like conceded defeat. Like, you are not going to get the guns out of America. When I tell you there's like 250 million to 500 million firearms in the United States of America, and like all of the top firearm manufacturers in the world are in the United States of America. It's kind of weird how that happens. The guns just don't leave and then people get them. We're never, ever going to get rid of guns or gun culture in America. I hate saying it, but it's not going to happen. The only alternative is to try to create and make gun culture better and have it be responsible gun culture, which is something we used to have in this country. I mean, I shot rifle in high school. Literally in high school, there was a gym teacher with a bachelor's degree in nothing who gave 10, 14-year-old kids 22 rifles, and they all managed to stay on a range and only shoot targets and account for every piece of brass and get the weapon back into the locker at the end of the day. So there is an avenue here for responsible gun ownership, as well as the legal responsibility of the parents, but that's a culture shift, and it requires a lot of things, not the least of which is taking one person or group of people and setting an example and a precedent so that moving forward, you can then mitigate the problem. And this kid's parents are the first two people who should be put up for it.
Okay, next is going to be Preacher, then Star, then Dog. Then we're going to wrap up this topic.
All right, I'm going to be real quick. I'm going to try to be real quick. First of all, I'm going to step out for the Doghouse Show and say, if you don't understand why he takes so long answering stuff, this dude does a shit ton of research, so he has a lot on his mind that he's. I'm sorry, he doesn't do anything at all. He just reads magazines real quick. Anyway, as far as the gun culture thing, I get what you're saying, but I'm going to go actually back to what James was just saying. When I was in school, yeah, we had a gun club where they would take you to the range and you would fire the weapons and at the targets. You're accountable for your shells and everything. Everything has to be accounted for. And my point to saying that, and this is why I always try to direct towards mental health, because when I went to school, kids went to high school with rifles in a gun rack in the back window, and there weren't shootings like this. Something over the years has changed. Now the kids don't have rifle racks in their guns, but they are in the school. So something changed, and I believe if we start looking at the mental health, is it going to be a quick fix? No, not at all. There's a lot of undoing that has to go on that kids, I can't imagine what it takes inside of a child's mind to make them think that this is their best avenue of action. I won't even pretend to think I know what that is, but there's going to be a lot of undoing for that. But I have to, anytime a shooting has happened, I've always took the stance when someone says, well, the guns. I said, well, listen, there were plenty of red flags. Their family should have noticed this. Their family should have noticed that, or their neighbors, like they were doing this in their garage. I have to stay true to what I was saying. The family should have noticed this. There were so many red flags along the way. All right, and then I'll leave it at that. The family should have noticed this. It's not the gun's fault. The father is just an outright jackass in my book, if the facts are true.
Okay. Now we're going to throw it over to Star, then Dog. Try to keep whatever you're going to say short, because we also have to do ending statements, and we're probably going to have no time for the last topic. We're going to have to wrap up.
I mean,
Star?
I can do my ending statement now. I don't really have.
Okay,
I doubt I'll
Dog,
have
could you also
to add.
hold it for your ending statement?
Yeah,
I'll make the
there's
decision
nothing
for
else
you.
to
Yes,
say,
you will.
so-
Okay, Star, continue.
You can do it, man.
Ending statement, Star.
Okay. I will agree with Brant that yes, Brant took a very pro. We should keep guns locked up, right? That should be something. At least the parents should have that. You know, it is almost like a gun control law here. But anyways, yeah, I agree with that. There should be a law on the books, especially when you have minors in the house, that you have to keep guns secured. I'm not somebody who grew up with guns. I've never been around guns, but I don't really give a fuck whoever owns them, you know. And I really don't give a fuck about who, what people do with them, as long as they're not hurting anybody else or hurting themselves. find the loss of lives really sad, especially knowing that these were kids that were, had like full futures ahead of them. And it's really remarkable to me that we are in the middle of COVID and we're still experiencing so many school shootings. So yeah, it's if we're going with the personal responsibility thing, I'm sure there's a way to fix the way that gun culture is now, and make it more responsible. So,
Kevin?
turn it to responsible.
Am I next?
Am I up?
Oh,
Yeah, it's Kevin, then you, dog.
Okay,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
thanks. Yeah, no, I think the mic cut out. Okay, thank you. So yeah, just to close out here, basically, look, for all the tragic and heinous particulars of this situation, those are ultimately a side story in the overall trend in the United States, which is over 30 school shootings in a pandemic year, mind you. If there wasn't a pandemic, it'd probably be more. And I think that the only way to really address that is to have a conversation, a brief conversation about the particulars of each, and acknowledge the loss of life, and then move to a broader policy discussion. And so far tonight, I only really saw Brant, if I recall, really kind of get at any sort of like meaningful policy differences to bring up substatutes to make it so that if parents do secure their guns, then they won't be held responsible in an event where a kid is able to break in. But apart from that, I saw Doghouse say that, he's all about gun safety and everything, but I didn't see any serious policy proposals or anything there. I think it's unfortunate because for all the victims that are out there, you've got millions of kids that are anxious, millions of college kids, millions of high school kids, and potentially middle school down the road. They're anxious that each day they go to school, it might be their last day on earth. And I think that that's unfortunate. I don't think that that's the price that you should have to pay for freedom, because we have a pretty good gun culture in Canada and we don't have all this bullshit on the side. So thank you.
Okay, next is going to be Doghouse.
all right, cool. So to James's point of person under 18, that is correct. He could not be transferred to him or sold to a person under 18. However, if you are at a shooting range, it looks like anyone under the age of 18, as long as they are accompanied by someone over the age of 18, is allowed
Are we
to
calling
possess that
schools
firearm.
firing ranges now?
Hey, wait. Okay, I forgot to say this at the start, but during ending statements, nobody interrupts anybody else because we're trying to give people uninterrupted time. Dog, continue.
So, I was merely mentioning this in the terms of the purchase of the firearm for use of the son, potentially, obviously, at a range. I don't think the parents bought it with the intent that the kid was going to go to a school and use it there. Obviously, that's dumb. But for them to go to a shooting range, perfectly legal. Second, to the gun safeties, I mentioned very explicitly mental health checks. Sure, it seems fine. I have to read the text of the law to get more specific. But mental health checks seem perfectly fine. Bump stocks. From what I've seen with that seems fine. Flat out weapons bans, not a favor of, only because of the fact that it seems like with that you would have retroactive, so you still really have firearms out there. Most gun bans will basically say from this point forward you can't have it, but guess what? Beforehand you can still have it. So not really a fan of that. Bump stocks, fine. Automatic firearms shouldn't be necessarily allowed. I don't know. Red flag laws seem like they could be good if they're used right with due process, possibly. So those are just some things. Unfortunately, obviously, we didn't have enough time, so I apologize. But I know I definitely did say mental health check for sure. So yeah, wrapping up this conversation, again, morally, the parents failed this child in multiple regards, right? They obviously, like Star said, if this is the case, that they weren't around, they should have been around their child more. They should have seen the signs, but they didn't. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe they did and they didn't. We don't know, obviously, until we get more evidence. But legally, it's a whole different ballgame. We should be looking at this from a very legal lens if we're going to try to say these parents are legally culpable and maybe even, let's say, civilly liable to some degree, which inevitably, if this is going to come, I think it already has come, actually. In fact, there's a $100 million lawsuit that was filed against the school and I believe the parents. So there is going to be some responsibility held by the parents. Again, to throw this all at me like I'm some gun nut, maybe, but I don't have any guns in my house. So kind of weird. I know I got the guns, but I cringe. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a gun nut, honestly. And quite honestly, like I said, I just care about the due process of law. Morally, again, I can't emphasize this enough. The parents fucked up. The school fucked up. And what happened at the school is fucked up. And it should have never happened. And whatever somebody could propose to either slow these school shootings down or stop them even better, I am all ears. But the problem is that some of these policies don't really seem to have either lowered or prevented these. So all ears, though. I'm all ears.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Preacher.
Yeah. First of all, I appreciate the fact that left and right can actually have a conversation on this. I think that's what our politics and our government needs to see. I don't think my mind has changed at all. I do believe, morally, I believe there's culpability on the parents' part. And so far, for what I'm seeing, it looks like legally, but I'm all for due process. I will wait and see what the courts say. And if something comes out of the courts, I'm like, oh, damn, I was wrong. But I do believe it's a tragedy no matter what way we look at it. And the fact that we can actually have conversations instead of beating each other over the head with chairs is a great thing. It's a great thing. And I appreciate everybody's respectfulness on the panel.
Dope. I'm going to throw it now over to Loner.
Yeah, it's a very, very unique case just because of where the parents are involved. But I think I think the most productive thing you can do over there is just to maybe think about the way that guns are kind of treated culturally. I think like gun regulations and especially bans are kind of like pointless in a country where there's more guns than people. I don't really know how exactly you would do that. Like, I don't know, I feel like the relationship with weapons, at least where I'm from, is pretty decent. Like, I've been clay pigeon shooting before. Like, I could have easily turned around and shot the guy. It's just not a big problem, like, where we are. And, yeah, I think, as far as weapons go, like, in other parts of the world, like, you know, you can buy swords and, like, fucking crossbows and all that shit here. It was just that if you start to develop an obsession with that stuff and make it like an essential part of your identity, people just think you're a fanny, and rightly so. And I think guns should probably be treated that same way. I think like responsible gun ownership should be very like, you know, revered and all that. But like the way some people take it, I think it's like very unhealthily encouraged. And I think the parents were just a symptom of that broader cultural problem.
Okay, next we're going to have James. Who left?
Yay, the left.
James.
No, I mean, I think I think people came up with a lot of good stuff here. Just for shits and giggles to throw it out there, since people are saying, you know, oh, well, you know, you're advocating for this or this or this, but you're not putting forth any policies or any specific ways. Like, how do you actually change gun culture just by saying gun culture bad? We should have mental checks. It's a larger prevailing problem. I'll throw it out there. We as a society, insert society meme here, we have been becoming more polarized as every single decade passes. And we're now nearly at a breaking point in society where everything is black or white, good or evil. You're with me or you're against me. You're part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And the hyper-polarization of literally 330 million people, which for the record, all they're really doing is mimicking our political and ideological schism, which is a top-down issue. It's causing more and more instability in people at a granular level. Like, we as a society, like completely and totally between all of us, are fucking failing everybody else. If you want to look at it on a macro level, we're all failing each other. We rarely have decent conversations. Everybody's a meme. Everything's a trope. Nothing has meaning unless it happens to you personally. So, you know, for the sake of saying that there needs to be a culture shift, there does. Unfortunately, gun culture, such as it is only part of the larger cultural problem. And I don't really think you can talk about one, you know, with kind of granular precision until you're willing to take on the conversation of the other.
Okay, now we're going to throw it over to Zerg.
Yeah, so it's a tough topic. Listen, I think gun regulation, some sort of something changing would probably help, but realistically, I don't know how that can ever be passed in the United States in any meaningful fashion. So it's a tough spot. I think it is a question about culture. Just to touch on what James just said before, I do think that if you look back historically, before the country was so divided, you still had a lot of school shootings here. So I'm not sure you can just blame the current political climate on what's going on. I do think there is a fascination with guns and weapons in the United States. I think it's partly been there since day one, and that probably does need to be a cultural shift. I know that's not nice to hear. For me, I look at the United States, I think maybe start with the NRA. The fact that they have so much power in the government and so much lobbying power, to me, just seems wrong. And groups like that wouldn't have anywhere near the same sort of influence in the United Kingdom. So, yeah, I think maybe start there, but it's a tough one. I don't really know what you can do. You might all be fucked.
Yep. Brant.
Yeah. So in closing, I think the parents are culpable. Like I said, I think all of the officials within the school that had immediate contact with the kid that it had the executive authority to deny the kid access to the premises. I think that they're culpable, even if it's 5%. You know what I'm saying? If we're trying to get arbitrary with this. The thing that's going to ultimately be what convicts the Crumblies, if it happens, is going to be the fact that you have a very vague law pertaining to, I believe it's 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, that they will essentially be having to fight against all of those red flags we talked about. Text messages, the warnings by the school, the fact that they insisted that the kid keep going. And one thing that I've learned in law is if you keep red flags on the field, they get bagged up and turned into evidence. And evidence is interpreted by 12 people, 12 peers. And this will be all on the shoulders, eventually, on 12 randomly selected individuals and how they interpret this crime and the culpability of the parents. Outside of that, policies that we could do to change things, like I said, let's get more articulate with our sub-statutes. Let's give people not only protection, but let's have a more, clerical reason for going after someone rather than just filing it all in one giant filing cabinet of involuntary manslaughter or manslaughter in the 3rd degree or whatever it is that they've been formally charged with. I think with those things, then you have like no reason at that point not to follow those laws. But outside of that, I think there's just a complete colossal failure all the way from the shooter all the way to the people that, were at the school.
Okay, usually there'd be a third topic, but both topics ran pretty long and we're going on 3.5 hours. So I think we're going to skip the third topic, which was about boycotting the Beijing Olympics, and I'll have to host that for another day. I would like to thank you all for coming by, and everybody in chat. I'd appreciate any subs or donations you could make towards the show. It's quite difficult to put this thing together, to get 8 people with different beliefs to sit down and discuss issues, not only the scheduling, but trying to figure out what topics they would be able to talk about and everything. And appreciate any support, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming by. Quickly, everybody can just shout out their stuff, go around the room. I'll start with Dog.
My name is Dylan Burns TV. You can get me at dylanburnstv.twitch, and make sure you drop a sub, a follow, and all that stuff. I stream every day. I actually don't know your schedule, Dylan, so you might have to tell me that. But anyways, I'm Dylan Burns. You can catch me there.
Thank you very much. I'm going to throw it over to Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. Great to be here tonight. I'm Kevin Castley. You can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Castley. If you're interested in debating me, you can request a debate over at that Twitter at. I stream every day, 7 days a week to Twitch, and I got my YouTube channel back after a bunch of fascist reactionaries spammed it with frivolous copyright. So we're back on YouTube, and daily content is going up on YouTube beginning December 14th. So subscribe to Superpower Broadcasting on YouTube and Twitch. And as always, it was great to be on Hippy Dippy. So everybody sub to Dylan Burns. Peace.
Wonderful. We're going to throw it over to Stardust.
Thank you, Dylan, for having me. I apologize once again for calling you wet towel. I no longer think that you're a wet towel. I think you were a very nicely moist towel. Sorry, oh, that's so weird. Why did I say that? Anyways, I'm Stardust. I'm here 7 days a week. I never stop. I'm always streaming when I can. And the only time I stop is when I'm going to die. In a video game, obviously. But anyways, check me out, Stardust. It's spelled exactly how it sounds. I have vowels now. So, and I'm also on YouTube and Twitter.
Finally, it'll be so much easier to look up your Twitch channel. Preacher.
Yeah, Dylan, thanks for having me. I want to thank you, Danabo, and CTV for getting me into this all-star cast. It was great being here with all these guys and lady. Not assuming anybody's gender, sorry. Preacher570 here on Twitch and also on TikTok. My other stuff, I really don't use my other social medias. I am going to start building my YouTube back up, but not immediately. So if you want to catch me Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, I am on my Twitch channel. I do politics, but I'm trying to do a variety of streams. History, I'm going to be going over the First Nations people of Australia this week. We have fun over there. We have a good community, left and right. We have disagreements, but just like here, we talk it out instead of beating each other with a steel chair. So thanks for having me. I greatly appreciate it. And really, donate to these guys because they work their asses off to put these panels together.
I'm going to throw it now over to Lonerbox.
Yeah, you hear what Preacher said. Donate to these guys, including me. I'm Lonerbox, the
Mostly me, though.
toxic streamer on Twitch. Fucking, yeah, I also make YouTube videos. Take care.
James?
I am officially the smallest partnered streamer on Twitch, so I'm just going to keep yelling and beating people over the head with facts and crushing bad narratives until I, get more than like 7 people to follow my channel. That'd be pretty cool. Also, I make YouTube videos every day on my 60,000 follower YouTube channel, so does slightly better than my Twitch channel.
Wonderful.
I'm from the internet. Peace.
Wonderful. Now I'm throwing it over to Brant.
Yeah, everybody, my name's Brant from the channel Brant for Liberty. That's BRANTFORLIBERTY. I basically follow anything and everything that's happening in the news around the world or around the corner. I really appreciate being involved in this. Really nice to meet the new faces and all the old faces as well. Getting together and just shooting the shit for a couple of hours. Thank you, Dylan, for inviting me. Make sure that y'all give this guy some support. Other than that, I just look forward to next time. Y'all come back now.
Awesome. Every Friday. And Nick, it's your job. Send us off. Shout yourself out and send us off.
All right, well, Dylan, thanks for hosting and thanks for inviting me to come along, given that I'm not one for usual this kind of political debate thing, but I had a good time. My name on Twitch and YouTube is Greenzerg. Mostly play D&D. I'm a level 10 fighter, a level 11 wizard in Tombs of Scoria, which is my greatest achievement. That's on Destiny's channel. You can go and watch that. Got some D&D shows on my own channel. Mostly do D&D, but maybe we'll do some more of this in the future. Thanks for watching.
Wow.
Flex.
And you agree with Destiny politically, right? Wonderful. See everybody later.